I don't have really a set agenda for this thing generally. It's more kind of a, because people come to it, some people have used the tool, some people are don't know what it's about. Some people have very specific things they want to do or they're having challenges with, and if I can figure out some way to assist, that'd be great. So again, this isn't a, I don't have like a PowerPoint or something I'm going to be showing you here. So, but I am interested, in what's, specifically like what questions people might have, or I mean, pretty much like I said, this isn't Ask Me Anything. So, but I do think we're going to get some more people show up. So I just want to give them a chance.
Well, I was particularly delighted to read about adding swing on playback, which I asked you about,
Yes.
and you replied this morning. So maybe you'll mention that. But that was kind of a deal breaker. If I couldn't do swing, then just the boring, especially hornpipes,
Yeah.
playback wasn't that useful.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, the swing was interesting because I was going through, these days it's kind of been, it's funny because I look at the main functionality of the tool that I built it for. I built it because I was doing, so let me give you, some of you may not know me from Adam. I'm a software engineer, but when I'm not doing software, I play a lot of different traditional instruments. So Anglo Concertina, and pipes, BC box, flute, whistle, and that sort of thing. And I play a lot in sessions, and I'm always learning tunes. And during the pandemic lockdowns, I was doing a lot of transcriptions for John Whalen for his taking time sessions. He was doing these weekly slow sessions every week, and then he would do an hour of tune teaching beforehand. And he would send me the tune that he was going to teach like a week in advance, and then I would transcribe it, and then we would provide the transcriptions to all of the people on this free tune teaching session he would do every week. And so, I mean, I was making PDFs of tunes constantly, both for my own purpose and for teaching. I was teaching whistle lessons and doing stuff for John and that sort of thing. And I was using, and I'm sure a lot of people were using the mandolintab.net converter, which was just this online website you could go to, kind of like what I'm doing now. Put in your ABC, did a beautiful job of creating really pretty PDFs. And I mean, I was completely reliant on this thing. I was using it every single day. And then in November of 2022, it stopped working. If you just go there now, you try something and it just says unauthorized. And I think what happened there is that's a server-side tool. So you type your ABC. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and share screen here to Firefox. So if I actually go to that, can you see that? Can you see the screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So this is what I was using for years, which was this, dentalintap.net.
Michael, can you make that a little bit bigger? I'm on my phone, so it's really small.
That better?
Yeah,
So, so mandolintab.net was this really great site. Let me grab just some ABC here from my tool here.
I found this is kind of easy ABC looked like it was kind of abandoned and rescued.
Yeah.
This is what happens when folkies support geeky tools.
Yeah, so like one day, so I'm sitting here and like, okay, John's doing the coulis, so I put in my ABC here and I clicked submit, and this is what started happening. Unauthorized. And I was like, oh no. Because this is what I was using every single day. And it had beautiful output. It did, SVG stuff. It created PDFs. It was just gorgeous. Anyway, so I decided at that point to, to that a couple things. One is that I was going to see what else was out there. And let's see, how do I get, oh, I see, stop share. So I was going to go see what else was out there as far as converters, online converters. 'Cause I had Easy ABC Tube and ABC Navigator and other stuff like that. I just never found them to be I always struggled with them. They seemed kind of quirky, would be the best way I would describe them. And I really just liked it was very, very easy. My workflow would be like I would have a text editor in one window, and then I would have the ABC converter website up in a second window, and I would just kind of go back and forth between them until I got my final result. And I was looking for another tool to use that same workflow so I could make my own PDFs. And then I hit upon this whole ABC.js thing, which is Paul Rosen's library that he wrote that is this completely web-based, completely JavaScript, no server-side code library for both creating notation as well as playing tunes. And I found, a lot of websites use it. The session.org uses it to render. And then I found some example code, a very simple example code of someone who had basically written what was the start of what my tool was. It was just a simple wrapper for ABC.js. And the main thing it did is it did transposition and it did whistle tab. And I was like, oh, this is fascinating. What is this ABC.js thing? So I started messing with it in January of 2023, and pretty quickly had the first version of what eventually became this ABC Transcription Tools thing. And I look back at some of the videos from March, and it wasn't pretty, but it did everything that like 90% of what I needed, like 100% what I needed and what most people needed was already done in March. So it was able to like create tunebooks, it was able to create PDFs and all that stuff. And then everything past that has just been mostly based on what people asked for and just me thinking about what's possible. And, so things like adding tablature for Bach's and Concertina and, even things like swing, grace durations, all that stuff was kind of looking at the ABC.js source and saying, well, what things, it would be interesting. I'd go through the source code for the thing, and he would have like, you could see where he had tried to do something for swing, and he's like, you can see it's all commented out, and it says, like, this isn't quite right. And I thought, well, okay, how was he looking at swing, and even how he was doing some of the backup generation was kind of, because again, I'm coming from an Irish trad standpoint. I wanted it to sound good for reels, jigs, that sort of thing. So I started looking at figuring out solutions for swing, like how would you do swing? What does swing even mean in the context of Irish music? Because, hornpipe's fairly straightforward, but like I was really interested in like micro swing for jigs, where instead of playing, your jigs is, it'd be like, where you're lengthening the first note and then you're shortening the second note very slightly to give it that feel. It's more than just it's not just a matter of timing. It's not a matter of start time adjustment. It's also a matter of duration adjustment. And I was kind of fascinated with how would you do that and how would you expose that and make that available to someone to control in a way that didn't break everything that was already out there for the tune books. And so anyway, so I started, that's where recently a lot of the focus has been more on the playback, because really the basic like PDF tunebook generation, incipits, that sort of thing, all of that has been pretty solid for 6 months. And so everything recently has been about playback. And then of course, most recently the TuTrainer, which I think is the most exciting thing that has happened to the tool in months. I think it's for me, I'm using it every day now.
Yeah, I've used slowdowners for a very similar sort of thing.
Yeah,
Working off of recordings.
exactly. Yeah, because I've always learned my tunes from I learned from recordings as well, and I use Transcribe. I've always used Transcribe. Transcribe is kind of like a Merizing slower downer. Same basic idea where you put you load a tune up, you get a waveform, you can chop it into sections, you can loop the sections and that sort of thing. But at the same time, it was like, well, as long as I got this ABC player, maybe, and I do have control over the speed, maybe I could build something. And I have these, the thing was about is like, because I have these tune books, right? I mean, one of the things that if you haven't seen the tune book page, I'm going to go back and share screen again. So, and then we'll actually start, I should probably actually demoing the thing, but like if you go to the tunebooks page, there's all these tune books that I built with it, and the King Street, for example, the King Street Sessions tune book, like this one, there's 1,006 tunes in here with chords. And if you go to any of these tunes, actually, I don't think I turned on sound when I shared. Hold on a second. Let me make sure to do that.
I'm sorry. My day job for the last several years has been a Zoom admin at a medical, how you say, academic medical center. So yes, I was going to say, turn on your sound.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so like, here's this tune book, with 1,006 tunes in it. And, and so I wanted it to, so in this thing you can click, this is all created using the tool. You can click on any of these tunes, go to the tune, click on the tune, takes you into the, takes you back right into the tool so you can play it. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be great if people who could get any of those 1,006 tunes could then, practice them using slow down or incremental trainer, right? Yeah. So
I like that because it's also simple enough for most folkies to be able to navigate. Because I've seen lots of ways of doing this, but several of them involved Git.
Oh God, no,
I don't want to expose the people I play with to Git. I have a hard enough time with Git.
Yeah, no, it's funny. It's funny because the source code for everything I'm doing, all of the things I'm doing, I'm giving away. I mean, people send me PayPal. That's great. I did this because I realized when the mandolintab.net site went down, I realized at that point that like I was completely beholden to somebody else's server. And I just didn't like that feeling. And I thought, I want to build a completely client-side version. There's no installation. There's no server-side components. Someone can go to GitHub. They can download the source code, unzip the file, run the ABC tools.html file, and they'll get everything that you can do with the tool just runs in their browser. And that's what I've done. There's zero. The only thing that's on the server, the only thing that relies on any external resources are the sound fonts themselves. They're not downloaded. They're not stored locally. They're actually pulled on the fly as required.
Michael, I have a question about that, which is great because you did give me the links to all of that, and I think that's wonderful, and I will try that eventually. But my thought is that maybe I should wait until you finish tweaking it before I do that, or does it update? Does it update when you do changes to it?
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Well, say I go to and go to Git and download it and set it up on my computer.
Just use it. No, just use it and
right. So I've got your copy.
Is it just me or is everybody having trouble hearing Alex?
Your connection must be slow because your voice is doing funky things.
Cutting out.
Alex, we're having some problems hearing you.
She probably can't hear us.
Oh yeah. Okay, hold on a second. I got a message here. Alex.
Your network connection is
I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Okay, now it's working.
We can hear you now. Yeah, leave your video off, Alex, probably.
I'm so sorry. We don't have internet currently. We have a plumbing issue. We got flooded again yesterday. Plumbers are here. They turned off the internet. Life is challenging.
Oh, sorry about that.
But I was determined to be here. I was going to be here no matter what.
Yes. Anyway, Alex, so your question was, I'm going to go back to the screen share here.
Yeah.
Was, no, just grab it anytime. How can I describe it? Like it'll do everything I'm adding is just additive to it. The thing's solid. I update it pretty much, every day. You've seen there's new features, new improvements, new.
Exactly.
And you can always grab it again at any point and just run, reinstall it. You don't have to install anything. You just have to unzip a file and then double click the ABC tools.html file. So no.
Michael?
Yeah.
Michael, this is Holly.
Yeah.
And got a couple of quick questions. First of all, you are amazing to do all of this. This is manna from heaven. I mean, truly amazing. So, couple of questions. First of all, are you going to ever make this into an app? I'm afraid of it going away.
Well, okay. So here's the thing. It's never going away because it's sitting, unless GitHub goes away. The beauty of GitHub is that, while it's on my website, like right now, we're seeing it and it's from I happen to put it up on a website. Anybody can download that source code from Git, stick it on a website, and have exactly the same experience as this. This was the other part of it was first off was I didn't want to be beholden to anybody else's server. So like, in the case of mentalintop.net, I don't know, somebody forgot to, forgot to pay for their certificate or whatever, and all of a sudden the service is gone. I wanted something that A, ran completely on the browser, and B, no one could ever, like, this will be out there forever.
Yay.
This is you can put this on my gravestone. This is because I was really kind of like, I was amazed how much I had become completely dependent on that tool, and I was kind of like pissed that I had allowed myself to get in that situation where I was completely dependent on another tool for what I was doing every day. And I just thought, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to put it out there, and it's going to be free and available, and the source code is going to be out there, and anybody who wants it can get it, fork it, change it, do whatever they want with it.
Thank you so much. One other question, and you might get into this. The books are enough to keep us going for years alone.
Yeah.
But if I find something on the session.org or somewhere else, just in standard notation, can I take a photo of that and load it on, and then everything falls into place?
Yeah, you can with not using my software specifically, but you've probably seen some of the crazy demos I've done with. I'll give you an example here.
Yeah, and this is how I found your stuff, was because
So let me show you some like crazy stuff here. So one of the and we're kind of getting a little bit into the sort of more advanced uses of this thing, but let's look at this. I think it's called Ragtime Nightingale. So so let me show you something here. Actually, let me go into. I need to find my original source for this thing. PDFs. Yeah. Okay. So. Just need to find it. Sorry. Assuming I have it. Let's see. Who wrote this thing? It's Midnight Nightingale. Sorry.
Can we do it without even the ABCs being involved?
Yes, we can.
Very cool. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, completely outside of my stuff. Okay. Well, I was hoping I could show you the original PDF that this came from. Actually, I can. Let's go to, let's go here, and let's look for, I think it's called, yeah. So this was an original PDF from MuseScore. Okay. And then there's a piece of software called PlayScore2, and this is normally a mobile app. Oh, you can't see a PlayScore2. Shoot. Let me share that instead so you can see what that looks like. Okay, so here is PlayScore2. So here's PlayScore2, and I've done a bunch of work with it. And PlayScore2 is kind of cool because it can you can load in an ABC file. I'm sorry, load in a PDF file.
Okay.
Like this, and this is actually an iOS app, and there's an Android version. Because I'm running on an M1 Mac, I can run iPad apps on it. So this is actually the iPad version of this app running on my Mac. And you load in a PDF file. You pick which pages of the PDF file you want it to do the OCR on, and so I've done that already. I've just picked the 4 pages of the notation, and then you just say, basically, it does the OCR on, and then you can save it as what's called a MusicXML file. Now, this thing will actually play it already.
Yeah, and it does slow down and all that good stuff too.
Yeah, so it's actually able to do that by itself. But if you want to work with it in the ABC editor, you can actually save it out as a MusicXML file, and I'll just save it. I'll save it here as ragtime nightingale.xml. I'll close this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share the ABC editor again. Okay, so I'll go back to this screen.
Yeah.
You can see. Can you see the? You can see the editor again. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this. I'm going to load the file. I mean, you can see. I'm going to just to show you that there's nothing up my sleeves here. I'm going to download that. Here's that XML file that I just created from that there, and here's the notation. And if we play, the only thing it's going to let's see. Let's go ahead and play it. It's a bit fast, so we'll change the. We'll put in change it, make it a little slower, and then just play it.
So basically, we need to first take a screenshot.
Yeah. You need a clean image. The cleaner the image, the better.
Yeah. And the other thing you can do is you can literally do this with a photograph from Tunebook. So let's actually do that. Let's. Let me go ahead and launch PlayScore again. I'll change the sharing to it so you can see the.
I was just going to say, if you've ever done this with other tools, like trying to use the score scanner from MuseScore, this is like, it just leaves MuseScore in the dust.
Yeah,
really.
So much better.
Just to show you here, I'm going to take like now again, if you're on your phone, you could use your camera on your phone to do this.
Okay.
Just kind
do
of.
You need to do you need to change it to a PDF?
Nope, no. When you're doing it on the phone, you can see there's a little icon down here for the camera. If you would literally just take a picture of it.
Oh my God.
With your you can just hold it, because the cameras are so good. I'm going to go ahead and like bring in like, let's say.
Okay.
Yeah, let me just find like some kind of a handout here in PDF format. Let's say, okay, we'll bring in here we go. And no, let's see. Blackwater polka set. Okay. So here we have this, and I'm going to just have it OCR, just the second page here. Okay. So it could literally take a picture of that. I sure hope this works. Okay. So here we have this, and this was like a PDF that, came out of my tool. Okay. So that looks good. Then I can go ahead and share that as XML, save it. We'll save it back in the downloads here. Go ahead and close PlayScore. I'll switch the sharing back over to the editor, and we'll go ahead and open that up. It was the Blackwater polka set one, and you can see now it's back in. So you can do that kind of stuff these days pretty easily with this. I particularly like PlayScore2. I've tried some other ones and found them to be less than. I mean, they just don't even start to approach. PlayScore2 throws. You can throw anything at it. It's just insanely amazing. Like, let's show you an example here. What would be one of the crazier ones?
Are you saying that PlayScore2 only works on Mac stuff?
No, no. PlayScore2 runs on Android as well, but
what about Windows?
There's not a Windows version as far as I know.
Okay, so it's useless to me. Thanks.
Yeah. But if you have any kind of a mobile phone, if you have an iPhone or an Android phone, you can use that. And everything that I showed you, like with that Ragtime Nightingale, I do those demos all the time just on my iPad. It's just it just works.
I would also say just the way the licensing is structured too. What you can do is collect a bunch of stuff that you want to convert. You pay for a 1-week license. Take your pictures of it, get them all into MusicXML, and then from there you can use it on Windows, whatever. MusicXML is a pretty standard format that lots of programs use. And be sure you use that and not MIDI. MIDI will make you lose your hair.
Yeah, no kidding. So like, well, let's see, The Simpsons. I had one that changed key like every. Not every measure like the thing I posted. Let me find just a quick one here. Like this started out as a music. This started out as a PDF. I mean, know, it's crazy stuff. I mean, that was, you know, turned that into, and that started as a PDF. Another one was like, I was doing some crazy stuff. Where is it? Oh yeah, Riders on the Storm. This was a fun one. Yeah, like this was, yeah. I mean, I only thing I did on this was set the instruments, but I do want to get the volume down a little bit. It's a bit loud. Here we go. Okay. I mean, you know, the fact that it just picked all those things up without any trouble at all. You know, and to do that, be able to do this on your phone just kind of blows my mind. The other thing too is that what it made me realize is that, you know, I always thought of ABC as being this, you know, this thing for doing reels and jigs, and it's very, very expressive in possible. Right. So, you know, so there's a demo. If you go to the Tunebooks page, there's this one. I have this one thing up there, which is this Ultimate ABC Tools, and this is a PDF Tunebook built using the tool that has all of those demos, and you just click on them, and it brings them up. This one blew my mind because of the meter. It picked up all the meter changes. But again, you know, the fact that it can do this, this is not what I went to set out to do when I wrote this thing. But I started to realize it's like, you know, we live in this time where there are just some amazing tools out there for sort of transcoding between, you know, PDFs and music. You know, when I discovered MusicXML, and then I found, you know, again, it was kind of like, okay, well, what's out there? Oh, there's a library that can convert MusicXML into ABC. It's like, oh, that's interesting, and it's open source, and it's, you know, it's got the right license, so I can bring it into my tool. And then it was like, oh, it turns out that there's like 3 different formats of MusicXML. There's MXL, which is a compressed format, so I had to figure out how to, you know, and on the whole idea, and the other thing was like to try to make it as easy as possible, so that if you had a MusicXML file, so like if you go, there are these websites where there are just literally thousands of MusicXML files. Like here, check this. You can't see it, but I've got a folder here with like 2,000 jazz standards in MusicXML, and I can just drag them onto the tool. You know, so it kind of set me down this crazy path of you know, oh my goodness, you know, all of a sudden there was this whole other universe of music available in MusicXML format, and that things like MuseScore and all that, you know, did the provided those MusicXML files for you that you could just download. Sorry, I got a little distracted there. Like I'm going to just drag another one on here. Like I was really enjoying doing like Vince Guaraldi stuff. So much fun, you know. And then you can kind of go crazy, because then you can start playing with swing and stuff on these kind of things. It gets kind of crazy. But you know, again, the idea being that it really made me appreciate the richness of ABC as a standard, and also the power of Paul Rosen's ABC JS library. that it can actually render and play this stuff, and it in any way resembles the actual music. I thought, yeah, this can handle jigs and reels pretty well. I'm not going to worry about that. And you know, I really didn't realize that until I started like just throwing some of these complex examples at it. And again, it's, you know, it's not. I'm just wrapping a bunch of libraries. You know, I've basically found, you know, here's the best in class ABC renderer I can find. Here's the best in class PDF generation library that I can find. You know, here's some available sound fonts that are available that I can transcode into something that ABCJS can use. You know, here is a QR code generation library. You know, so for example, if people want to share stuff, you know, you can generate a QR code that someone can just scan, and you know, you can put that, or you can put that in a Tunebook, or you know, you say, well, geez, that's an awfully complicated QR code. Well, you know, let's go ahead and shorten it, and looks like maybe tiny URL is slow today. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, I won't worry about that. But yeah, you know, just like, you know, looking at what was available. The share URL thing, that was actually a suggestion by one of my users very early on. He goes, hey, you know, Michael, I got this idea where if you could like take the tunes and actually like put them in the, you know, put them in a form that would be compatible with a hyperlink, you know, a URL, then you could actually like send the tunes as a link. And then I realized if you could compress, because ABC, if you think about it, ABC is only like, you know, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, excuse me, and most tunes, like, you know, a few symbols and then maybe some text, it compresses really, really well. So it was like, well, you know, I could create a share, I could bring in like an entire tune book. Like we could bring in, let's bring in like all of the sleeve note polkas. Right. So here's the three main sets of the sleeve notes, and I could like create a share link that, you know, if I send that, if I take this link, oh, finally it came back with the other one. If I take this link and I send that to someone, I can just copy it and put it in an email, or I could just send it to someone. They click on that link, they get all the tunes. The tunes are actually, you see this big long URL here. If you look at that URL, that actual URL has all of the tunes encoded in it. And because URLs can be pretty big, you can see at the end here, it has things like the format is in notes, that it's one page per, you know, these are just little information like stand along with it, and here's the name of it at the very end of it. And then I realized it's like, wouldn't it be interesting if, like, when people clicked on these share links, if it just went right to the player? So here I just clicked the button, said add autoplay, and all I did was just stick this little thing on the end here, says play equals 1. Now I'm going to test share URL just treats it like if someone clicked on the URL. And you see, oh, it's like, oh, here now we've got that tune. In this case, it was multiple tunes, but I just have the one tune. It's going to bring it up in the player. And that's the basis behind what's going on in the PDF tunebooks, is like when it generates. So for example, okay, so let's back up a little bit. So I've got these 9 tunes loaded up here. And, you know, I mean, that's great. But let's say I wanted to create the PDF tunebook from it, and I wanted it to be so that someone, when they clicked on those tunes in the tunebook, it would play the tunes. And it's literally this simple. You go to Export PDF, you click Configure PDF Tunebook Features. This used to all be manual, and now it's like I automate it for you. You just tell it what you want. So let's say I want it in high quality. I want a title, page header, page footer. Let's see. We'll do that. We'll say, here's the instruments we want play, and we'll say add playback links to each tune. And here's the instrument I want it to play, and I'll change it just for fun. We'll say, say harpsichord. And let's see, there's no chord, so I'm not going to worry about that. And we'll put a QR code at the end. And this just sticks a bunch of stuff at the top when you do that, when you click that. See all this stuff it added? These are all described in the user's manual. These are all the basic parameters that, and again, these are private to my tool. Only, you know, if you know anything about ABC, that when a line starts with a %, that means it's a comment, which means anybody else's ABC tool reading this will just think this is a bunch of comments. It'll completely ignore it. But my tool, when it plays or generates PDF, it actually looks for these particular annotations at these directives, and it does stuff. So it says, oh, I see that there's this add title, so it's going to create a title page. There's a QR code annotation. It's going to create a QR code. And then this is the magic that this is literally all it takes to make a Tunebook play, is add all playback links, and this gives it the melody instrument and the bass chord instrument. And then if you click Export PDF, and we didn't have to, we could have just done this and then just click this. We didn't have to exit, but I could say, what do I want? I want letter. I want multiple tunes per page. I want a page number on the bottom right. I want the title page to be in Helvetica, and I'll just say okay. And then we just say okay. And this will generate that PDF file, and it'll bring it up here shortly. And, so here's our title page. Let me zoom out a little bit. Here's our title page. Here's our table of contents. You click on these, it jumps right to that tune, the page with that tune. These take you back to the table of contents. This one takes you to the index. The index is sorted by name. You click on those, takes you back there. If we go to the very end, after that, you'll see there's a QR code for for all the tunes. Actually, in this case, I just had it, I set the QR code. You can either have it do the tunes or you can have it be whatever you want. So in this case, I had it so that you scan that, it just goes directly to the tool. So I do that a lot on them. I just close that. Let me open it.
Michael, can you play from the PDF?
Yes, absolutely. So you can just go to any of these tunes and you can see how it highlights here. So if I want to play Kathleen's, I just click on it. Opens up in the tool, play it. If you want to learn it, go Tune Trainer. Now you're in the Tune Trainer.
Right. So the PDF then just basically creates or has the link that goes into the tool.
Exactly. Yeah. So all it's doing, what's literally happening is it's exactly like when I was in. So here's the tune, and the other thing too is when you actually click on those tunes, this is one thing I really like. You go to the tune, it brings in the tune player. If you close the player and you close this, you're in the editor. You have the tune. You can do anything you want with it. Yeah. So literally, what's happening in the PDF generation is it's basically doing exactly this when it's generating the PDF. It's creating this share link, and it's making that a hyperlink. You can attach hyperlinks in PDF files to any element, and what it's doing is it's finding the part of the tune on the PDF page that has the title, and it's just applying that hyperlink. It's literally generating this link and making that the hyperlink, and it does that for every tune. And so whether it's 10 tunes or 1,000 tunes, the mechanism is the same. And it's literally that simple to add playback to, for example, if all we did here is just had that one directive, okay, just that, and I did an export PDF. We'd end up with a PDF with no title page, no table of contents, just the tunes, but the tunes would still be playable. Okay, so so for me that's just super cool. And I started to realize this makes it possible to make these interactive tune books. And then it's like, well, what if I want an interactive, you probably noticed that when I post the interactive tune books, I post them a lot of times, there'll be the standard version and there'll be the mandolin version. So all I do to do that is, let me go back to Export PDF and just reconfigure this. So I want to make the mandolin version of it, okay? So I just changed the tablature here to mandolin. And we should end up with a sleeve notes tune book here, and all of it in mandolin format, right? Just super easy. I mean, part of this was just
how do you go back, get rid of the mandolin?
So these buttons down here. Okay, so in the tune books are kind of specific. I mean, if you were in the tune book, and so let's say you downloaded the mandolin tune book, and I usually have tune books for every one of, if you notice, I usually post 12 versions of the tune books. One is just in standard notation, then there's mandolin, guitar, bouzouki, whistle tab, and then I do a bunch of, I'll show you another one here. But yeah, so if all you have is this and you just wanted to get rid of that, you could come out of the, could come out of the player here and just turn it off.
And where did you turn it off?
See this line of buttons here?
Okay.
This changes the display.
Okay. Aha.
To all
so once you have the ABC in the editor, then you can do whatever you want with it.
Excellent.
Yeah, and if someone wants the raw, some of these tunebooks, like probably the raw ABC for like the King Street Session tunebooks, Michael probably wouldn't want me to redistribute that. Oh, he might give that away, but generally most of these things, I'm more than happy to provide it. But for example,
Michael?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry. And you might touch base on this later. Is there a way when you're not in one of the books, simply to do a search for a tune title? So say you want whatever, Wise Maid.
Yeah, right. I would do that. I would do that on the session.org.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, just go to the tunes page here. So let me give you, here's
how would I put it into the transcription?
Yeah, this is a very common pattern here. So for example, let's say you say, I want to do the Wise Maid. Okay, so you find a version of the Wise Maid here and you say, okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay, this looks like the Wise Maid, and you can just say ABC, copy.
Okay.
And then come over here. I'll launch a second. Yeah, we'll just do it. Maybe paste it.
Would you put it in PlayScore2?
No. If you have the ABC, just drop it right in the editor.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, Holly, because if you're coming from the session, almost everything on the session, I mean, I'm not real experienced, but everything I've ever seen on the session, you just click on the ABC tab and it's already
absolutely perfect.
Right. Yeah.
And then that will generate.
You don't have to mess with any of the other stuff. You just take the ABC, dump it into Michael's tool, and you're good to go.
Yeah. So like Holly, give me another tune that you might be interested in.
Maid Behind the Bar.
Okay, Maid Behind.
I'm on the Maids. I have no idea why.
Okay. So Maid Behind the Bar. So you just type. You go to the tune page, and you can pick styles here if you want. This is we'll just say Maid Behind the Bar. It'll even suggest like if it has it, and you say search, and then you find it here, and then there'll be like a bunch of versions because people contribute them. So here's a version of chords, right? So all you do is you click. It'll have sheet music and it has ABC as a tab. So click ABC. Here's the ABC. You can just click copy. You don't even have to like try to select this. Just click copy.
Right.
And then you just come back to the tool.
Unbelievable.
And then just paste it in here, right? And then if you click on it, so and then if you play it, you see we can just play it. Okay, so I mean that's a really typical workflow, and they can say, well, gee, I want to change this. So let's say I don't like this B minor here, so I can just get rid of it. So it's very common. Like even when I'm doing my own transcriptions of tunes, I'll start with a version from the session.org, and then I'll mark it up and I'll say, well, I'm actually want to show some people some ornamentation. So let's say I'll put in a G grace note on this F right here, and I'll mark this all up until I have it the way I want it. And then eventually I'll just save it, as my own ABC.
And for someone like me who's not quite as familiar with ABC, what this allows me to do is I can grab the ABC from the session, dump it into this, export it to MusicXML, and then I can read the MusicXML into MuseScore because I grew up classically trained.
How are you? Here, I've got a question for you. Like my MusicXML is one way. I only bring in XML and turn it into ABC. You're able to turn ABC into MusicXML?
Maybe I'm imagining things. I was doing something. I did something that let me do that because I know that was kind of a pain.
Yeah. I mean, I guess one could use the ABC, bring it in, edit it, use PlayScore2 and turn it back into MusicXML. That could be something.
Maybe you're right. Maybe I wasn't doing that.
Yeah.
But I was trying to get into MuseScore. I did want to be able to get into ABC though, because at least when I'm playing stuff with in a session, all that stuff is, all the session software wants to see ABC. And so that's fine for most of the stuff. It's just if I really wanted to tweak the notation, I can bring it into MuseScore.
Right, right. Yeah, I don't use MuseScore much except to find really cool examples to turn into ABC.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
I'm
Um,
pretty sure that I've used Easy ABC to take ABC and export it as music XML.
oh, that's cool.
That's okay. That must be the
Okay,
tool I
cool.
was using.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, because I do have Easy ABC. Yeah, I
yeah,
knew there
well,
was a
that's cool.
tool out there. It's MuseScore and a lot of the notation programs don't understand
ABC.
ABC.
Yeah, they don't.
I've seen one, was it Staves and Tabs, or
Yeah, yeah,
there was another one, Tab Editor,
yeah,
that understood, but their output wasn't nearly as nice.
yeah.
Yes,
My focus,
sound
yeah, my focus has primarily been on just like getting things into ABC and into the ABC world, and I haven't been. While I do, I mean, I'll show the MIDI export. I haven't been too focused on getting stuff out in other formats. That's not really my thing.
Yeah, and I found MIDI to be almost useless because I can't find any programs that'll let me shift. If you've got a pickup note,
Yeah,
that'll let you
yeah.
shift the eighth note and make good notation. So you usually end up with this
Garbage.
gobbledygook.
Yeah,
Yeah.
garbage. And going. I've been playing around. I was playing around with some MIDI to ABC stuff that was just absolutely hilarious. If you've played with any of that, it'll take the MIDIs that come out of my tool, come out of ABCS, and actually does a really good job of turning it back into ABC. But if you just like throw the MIDIs from like session.org at it, you just end up with some absolutely hilarious stuff. But I want to spend a little bit of time. We've kind of gone into the weeds with the music XML stuff, which is really interesting for those of the people who are really interested in music XML. But I want to talk about some core functionality in the tool that I think that I've put in the last few months that I think is really helpful for people. And one of them is the most simplest thing ever, and that is this: you can drag this guy and make it bigger, and the music slides over. And this was one of the biggest complaints, was that this was too small, or and I finally figured out like an elegant way to do this. Now, of course, this is better on a bigger screen. Now, some people, this is another thing too, is a lot of times I get people, oh, if your screen looks like this, you need to zoom out in your browser until it looks like that. Okay, I even put up a thing like at the top here. It says, do you want to see the editor and notation side by side zoom out? You can get rid of that. It tells you, just kind of reminds you that it is possible to get the side by side view. So if you find yourself, and I do find this, like people have smaller like MacBook Pros or something, they're using it like this, which is fine, but really, if you just were to zoom out a little bit, you get the side by side view. So that's just another thing that I've tried to make that a little bit easier, more discoverable. But one of the biggest things was being able to do this kind of thing. And I wasn't that interested in that. I thought, well, geez, I mean, most ABC tunes that I'm used to look like that. They're very constrained and small. The lines aren't very long. And then I got this one user who's doing some really interesting stuff with it. Let me find his file. It was, I think it was this one. Yeah. So he's doing like this kind of stuff where he's got he's got an interesting format he uses. And, his experience of the app was, this is what it looked like to him, which is unusable. Right. And he's like, do you actually intend people to edit ABC using your tool? I'm like, yeah, what's the problem? And then he sent me his file and I went, oh, yeah, that's a mess. So, now there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, he's super happy, and I think this is just so much better, being able to do this, and this was hard to do, figure out how to do this right so that it would stretch, and then, yeah, you can go over it, but it would go as far as it could go, at least try to get out of the way of the notation. So that's one thing that's, one of those, it's in the manual, but nobody reads the manual, and which is fine. Okay, so I want to show you a couple more things here. Let me go.
Reminds me of tables and Markdown. It's another kind of geeky thing that.
Yeah. So a couple of things here. Let's just talk about some basic functionality here. Let's see. I'm just going to clear it here, and I'll just stick with the. So one of the best ways to play with this thing is I don't know how many people are using the add menu. one thing I do in the tool, and I've done this recently, is I've added some Google Analytics that kind of let me know what features people are using, because I'm really interested, like, how many people are using transpose. Turns out like the vast majority of people use this thing for transposing. I see like thousands of transpose operations going on. So this is a really, really, this is a great starting point for just playing with the thing, because you can just like add some examples here. And I've just picked some representative examples here, and it shows you some, some features of the things like the sound fonts and the programs and the swing. It gives you a nice little example here that you can play with, so you can just sort of mess with the tool. When you click on a tool, it becomes the current tune, and it tries to scroll it into view on the right.
I'm sorry, Michael, I missed. Where did those come from?
They're on the add menu. I'm sorry, the add.
Oh, I see. Gotcha.
Examples here. Yeah. Yep. And I've also put a configure here, because a lot of people, this is like a convenient place to put it. The other thing that's really handy is what I added, the snapshot feature. People aren't using it as much as they should. So let's say you're gonna, I'm gonna just take this down. I'm gonna clear it. I'm just gonna add one tune. I'm gonna just add the hornpipe here. Okay, and you're like, okay, I'm playing with this, and I'm going to do something. I'm going to do some violence to this tune here. I'm going to transpose it up into the key of E, right, or whatever. And you're thinking, whoa, I messed it up, or I'm going to make a bunch of changes here. So what the idea here is it's essentially. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Let me clear it again. The idea with the snapshots, and I tell you, I use this all the time, is that if you're about to do something to the tune, and you just want to get back to a certain point, snapshot just grabs the text, whatever's there right now. So if I start just messing with this thing here, I start adding some comments, I start deleting the ABC, whatever, and you go, oh, I've made a complete mess of it. You can just hit restore. Takes you back to where you were.
But you have to do a snapshot.
You have to do snapshots. So before you do anything, you think I'm going to do a bunch of work for this thing, you're going to want to do the snapshot. The other thing too about the snapshots is that they outlive the application. So for example, if I take a snapshot right now and I close this, okay, and I then open it again, if I go to add, restore from snapshot, take you right back to where you were.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
How are you storing that? Are you storing that as a cookie or something then?
No, everything, all of my stuff is stored in browser local storage.
Okay.
So yeah, so if we actually go into, this is pretty geeky. We go into the developer tool.
I just didn't know if you were dumping it into the paste buffer or into something in the browser or what.
No. I'm actually storing it. I'll show you where everything is stored, because you can actually mess with it. If you actually look in local storage, there's a whole bunch.
Oh, okay.
This is where all the preferences are being stored. So like if you see there's be a save snapshot here, see that? Mm-hmm. That's the snapshot. So it's stored in local storage just for the tool. And
so that's specific to your browser then, or a person's particular browser? It's
particular browser, and and for the particular website. And that's why if you like set guitar, and then
so if I close it, website, reopened it, it's still going to be in my local browser storage.
Correct. That's why. Yeah, that's how it's able to remember that you were in like guitar mode last time, and it sets it back at things.
Right. Because I'm not a web developer, so this is new to me, but that makes sense.
Yeah, it's super easy to use. You can just put text in there. The other feature that is around the snapshots and I don't turn this on by default, is if you look in. Okay, so first off, all of the settings, and there's a lot of them, and they keep being more of them, are in the settings dialog here. And if you ever see a light bulb on a dialog, it just means it'll take you right to the documentation for that feature in the tool. I'm sorry, in the user's guide. So there's this one at the top that says save an auto snapshot on browser tab closer reload. What this means is like if you don't want to have to worry about taking snapshots, but like you just want to get back to where you were. So for example, we'll add the cache, and let's add a hornpipe, and we'll add the two-part invention. Okay, so I have these 3 tunes here in the thing, and I've turned this on, this auto snapshot, and I'll go ahead and close the tab, I load it, it grabbed, just before it closed, it grabbed that state, and now you'll see restore from auto snapshot. And you'll see we're right back where we were.
So is the auto snapshot independent from the manual snapshot then?
It's independent from the manual snapshot, yeah. Yeah, it's independent.
And then you can play these back as a set?
The player plays just one tune at a time.
Okay.
Yeah, the player doesn't do multiple tunes. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's kind of a ABC.js thing. But you can click on any of these tunes. Like you can click on two-part injection, hit play, and then play it. Yeah.
But it is recognizing them as independent tunes in one ABC file.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, because I've seen some ABC programs don't understand multiple tunes and they do weird things.
Yeah, no, these are being treated as they're completely independent entities within.
Because that's that's a tunebook format that's for ABC, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, basically, what denotes tunes in an ABC file.
Right.
X tag. Yeah. So anytime there's an X tag, that just says, okay, that's a new tune.
And you can change that number to make it a particular tune number too, can't you?
If you want. It actually is just in terms of most ABC software, just ignores it.
It seems like it was a feature that somebody thought originally would be useful, and now it gets basically ignored. So you just always stick one in there.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see 1s, 2s, 3s. I mean, it can be handy, but nothing really depends on a specific value there.
Right.
Let's see. I did want to show you something kind of interesting here for tunebooks like the Sleeve Notes book. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add.
You have X1, 2, and 3 there.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean X1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to go ahead and just add the PDF stuff to it so that we have the. Oh, I didn't want to do it. Anyways, I've got the PDF. Can you hear me? I just heard a little glitch in the audio. Are you able to hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So for example, this is a very. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Sleeve Notes. They're a great band, and they have some great polka sets. But here I have like these 9 tunes, but in reality, those 9 tunes are 3 sets of 3 tunes. And if I just generate the PDF file from them, that was weird. If I just generate the PDF file from them, then it'll just be a continuous stream of tunes, and there's really no denotation in here that these are sets, either in the tunes or in the table of contents. So one of the things I added was a little feature where you can go anywhere in the book and you can go into and there's a lot of stuff in this advanced dialog here, and some of it's really, really handy. And one of them is this ABC inject section header. And I'll say set number 1. And this just drops in this little bit of ABC here that my tool understands, and other tools will just think it's just an empty tune. But this little format here tells my PDF generator that that's something special. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that a couple more times. Let's see. So we have the first 3 tunes, and then I'm going to drop another section header here. We're going to call this set number 2. Oops. Sorry, must have hit return. Advanced section header. Set number 2. Okay. And again, you can see it just dropped in a little bit of ABC there for the second set. And then we'll go to the third set. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And then I'll put in a section header for that one. And we'll say set number 3. And again, you can see it just did that, and it shows up in the ABC here. It shows up in the notation. But things get really interesting when we do this, when we generate a PDF. So I've got these 3 sets. Each one has these little markers. You can type them in manually, but I just like to use this inject section header feature. It's easier. You click anywhere and just click that. Now if we generate that PDF, and it's interesting. It's like Zoom grabbing the screen is doing some interesting stuff to the way the web page is behaving. Now, what you'll see is things are a little different. It's broken the table of contents out so that it actually shows the sets, puts them in the center. You can click and it goes right to the set, right? So I found that to be a really handy thing for just denoting sets inside Tunebooks. And it's the same thing when you go to the the index, it'll put the set list at the top. So that's just kind of that's a handy feature for people making tunebooks who want to have to denote sets in there.
Now, if you have, say, just a tune book of a bunch of tunes, you want to create sets without necessarily duplicating the ABC, on a page of sets. Is that possible? Like just to have an index that will grab a few tunes for a set?
I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
Yeah, I think of a clearer way to ask us. So I have a tune book of individual tunes, and then say I want to have index of sets. Is it possible for me to have in an index just listings of where the tunes are, and you can then display those as sets?
Right.
Does that make...
Yeah, I mean, again, I kind of intended the section header to be used for that, because that's what shows up. Again, the end result being that you end up with a table of contents like this.
Right.
Right, and so that's how I meant. Is you actually physically group those sets in order in the tune book, and then you separate them with the section headers.
Right. And if a tune shows up in more than one set, you just duplicate the tune.
Yeah, you'd have to duplicate the tune.
Yeah. That's fine. I was just curious. My tidy soul was wondering if there was a way to do it with
yeah, like some kind of a indirection kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I love this. This comes from this was I went to your very first tutorial, and this is what I was trying to do, was these set things, right? So thank you so much.
I aim to please generally.
You do such a fine job of this. Thank you. And I'm back there now. I can actually interact with you guys.
Let me go through a couple more things here. Let's see.
Can I ask a question?
Of course, please.
Yeah, my tidy soul likes those 3 tunes on one page.
Yes.
So I don't have to turn pages to play the 3 tunes.
Yes. So, okay, so that's a very common question, and was probably one of the biggest challenges from the very beginning. And this was one of these things where, ABC.js, it attempted to do as much of the ABC 2.1 spec as it could. And the ABC spec is available right here in the top of the tool. You can click on it and it'll take you to the spec. And, this is like reading Bible verse. You just keep going back to it and you're going, oh, I didn't know it could do that. And one of the things that I didn't know that ABC could do was this thing called, I have it actually in the advanced, which is inject staffwidth. And this actually allows you to change the height of tunes as they're printed. So you can see this is like staffwidth 800. I'll make it 900. And so, whoops, that's probably not the number we want to use. But this is the magic that allowed to get more compact format. What if you don't set it, it's basically, kind of the spacing is kind of like this, and you can typically get 2 tunes on a page if they aren't in tablature. But Ben's question was like, this is just like a super common thing. It's like, I want those 3 tunes on one page, and I don't care how you do it. That's what I want. And so so I started thinking, well, like, how are we going to make this happen? I mean, there are some options as far as page size, but a letter in A4 that gets you a little bit more vertical space. But the way to do it is, okay, so let's just go ahead and generate this PDF. And it's going to try to do multiple tunes per page. It's going to try to lay them out as best as it can, sort of using the default size. And I tried to pick a default size that was, pretty and good for, like, you can do either single page tunes or it tries to put multiple tunes per page. And this will probably get 2 tunes per page. and some if it can fit it. Okay, in this case, it couldn't fit any of those. Oh, there we go. I got 2 on one page. I mean, it tries to do its best job. It tries not to split tunes over pages if it can. I have to do that, and that's why you can't use the browser print, because the browser print, it can print the tunes and it'll create a PDF, very small PDF, but it can't actually do any kind of real formatting as far as layout. So the key, if you really want to get these things on as many tunes as one page, is you want to use the inject staff width and set this to something. We'll try 800. I don't know if this is going to work right, but then you click this inject all tunes. And this will actually stick that staff width annotation in all these tunes. Let's go ahead and try to generate this PDF and see what happens. Now, this is one of those cases where I probably should have done a snapshot, because it's like, well, I don't know if 800 is the right number, right? Maybe 900 is the right number. Okay, let's see what we get here. 9 pages. Do we get more tunes on a page? Well, we got the first 2 tunes on a page. Second one, okay, we got more tunes happening on multiple pages. Now, this last line, there's actually a way to fix that as well. There's another annotation that we'll add. But let me hold on
if you're working live off of a computer screen rather than off of a printed book, you could just continuously scroll, couldn't you? Like you're doing there.
Yeah, but a lot of times, if someone's doing, if you're in if you're actually if you're one of these sessions where people have a book,
yeah,
and they don't want to flip the pages. Let me.
I'm just saying, because I often will actually work off, because of course I'm a geek, that I'll work off of a display with a page turner pedal.
Oh, with a page turner pedal, yeah.
And just like you could just scroll or whatever.
Yeah, I'm going to reopen that one. I see this was a perfect case where I really should have brought in the, so I'm actually going to do that. Let me kind of start from scratch here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to re-inject my settings. Okay, so I'm going to grab a snapshot, because here's the case where I'm like, I'm really want to try this, and I don't have a way of previewing like what the pages are going to look like. That would be nice, but I don't do it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to inject staff width into these things. I'll say 900 this time. And I'm going to add another annotation here, which is, I think it's called, let me try something here. This is one of these cases where I don't have the entire ABC spec memorized. I want to fix that. So there's another annotation, which I believe is, stretch last. Is that what it's called? Stretch last. Yes, stretch last. True. Yeah, true. Okay, so that fixed that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to inject. This is another feature. I can actually go to inject header string. I can say stretch last. Inject all tunes. And that'll fix it for all the tunes now. All the tunes have proper last things. Okay, so
Brilliant.
So we'll go ahead and generate that PDF, and let's see if we get more. Let's see if Michael's is kind of long. That's the one that's causing the problem with that first set. Let's see if it was able to get it. Okay, I got 8 pages. Before it was 9, so maybe it fit it this time. Nope, still too big. Okay, let's restore from the snapshot. See, now we're back to where we were before. We can do advanced, inject stat width. I don't know. We'll try 1,000. Yeah, we'll do it until it works, right? I'm not going to worry about the stretch last for now. I just want to see if it'll get it there. But there's a lot of flexibility. ABC is pretty expressive this way. Oh, and there's another setting we can mess with if we need to, as far as the staff height. Okay, it still didn't get there, but anyway, that's the kind of thing you can play with to get tunes on one page. Again, some flexibility. The other flexibility is there's a setting, there's a value, and there's a default. There's a staff spacing value here. It has to use something. That number can actually be quite small. It can be like -20. And you'll see that these will compact down. So if we take that and then we combine that with, 800, let's say, inject. now we've got pretty tight spacing. If this doesn't, let's see, I won't multiple tunes per page. I bet this will fit. Let's try it. Usually there's always some way to make it possible. 7 pages, that's good. Michaels really doesn't want to go on that first page. Anyway, you kind of get the general idea. Is that there's a lot of dials you can turn if you know where they are. And the staff spacing, that's another one of those directives you could actually manually stick into your tunes if you need to. So like, I think it's, what is it called? Staff spacing? I should know this. Anyway, there's ways of adding. I should just look it up. It would be in the spec, and I can look for staff. Oh, it's height. No, space. Let's see, spacing. Space. Here's the space directives. The one I want is info space downchain. Where is it here? Space.
Can you reduce the space between the tunes?
Yes. Yeah, you can. You can. That's this. Staff step. That's the one I was looking for. Yeah. So staff. So for example, if you specifically wanted it on a particular tune, you could change it for that. You could change it for. So we're in the Blackwater here. It's 50, and I can make it 100. You have control over that, and then that's one of those things where you could go ahead and inject. I don't. How can I describe this? Like, I'm going to make these all really big, okay? I don't take away the need to understand ABC. I just make it possible to make it fairly straightforward to put the ABC, what's possible with ABC. Yeah, the spacing between the tunes, that is handled by this value here. Space between tunes. So if we wanted to have 2 inches between the pages, we could set that to 144. And let's see, let me make sure that it actually, okay, well, we'll just let it do its thing.
If anybody knows page layout, the 72nd of an inch is 1 point, like 1 point type.
Yeah, it goes back to the resolution of what the Apple image writer. Yeah, so you can see here, it put a lot more space between the tunes. So yeah, a lot of that's interesting. Again, looking at the spec. It's really interesting to look at the. Sorry, I just want to find the right part of the spec to look at here. There we go. So like these kind of tables are really interesting to look at because it tells you kind of what. Now 100%, ABC JS does not support 100% of these things. Like for example, these page height, page width, top margin, these things are. These are not universally supported features, but the fonts are. Like these fonts, you can mess with the fonts. In my tool, where the fonts are is actually if you go into settings. Like okay, so let me back up here. If you notice, I have a fondness for Comic Sans, which people love to tease me about, but because if nothing else, you can't forget it, right? That ABC in Comic Sans is kind of iconic. So anyway, so I happen to like Comic Sans, but not everybody likes Comic Sans. So you can, in the settings here, there's a configure ABC fonts, And you can see these are the fonts that I like to use. But, and by default, that's not what it uses. It uses times. By default, you can save and load these sets to a file. So by default, it would look more like.
You can change them to Papyrus, so a whole different set of people will harass
Yes,
you.
yes, exactly. So like the default fonts are Palantino, and it would look like this, your standard kind of serif fonts. But I like to use Comic Sans, so I will just load my Comic Sans back. And if you completely screw it up, you can click Reset to Defaults, and you'll get the default fonts.
My relationship with Comet Sans is a bit like Jig of Slurs.
I like it. Yeah. So yeah,
it was the history of that's interesting. Don't have to go into all the details, but it's like somebody threw it together in an afternoon because they needed something, and it got thrown into the I don't know if it was the PostScript set or what, but Windows somewhere, and it just stuck. It's the undead font.
Yeah, it's not universally supported, which kind of surprised me. I need to. Oh, can someone say something?
Yeah, yes. I can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you.
Can anybody hold on a second?
We can hear you. Can you hear us? No.
One second.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Oh God.
I have to replace this piece of equipment. I have a compressor in my chain here that I use to keep my ears from getting messed up by people playing really loud, and it's just flaky as all heck. It just decided to turn itself off, but I think it's okay now. Can someone say something just so I can hear?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Great. Okay, so anyway, so I do want to just talk about the settings on here, because a lot of people don't even know these exist, and they actually have a lot of power. So for example, if you're looking at, let me clear this and just load up a default tune here. Sorry, I'll just use one of the add. We'll just use the hornpipe. Okay, and I'm going to just take out. These directives here. So all it's said is just the swing. Or I'm even going to take the swing out, because it'll swing hornpipes by default. So let me just play this tune. And the question is like, okay, well, why is it using a piano, and why is it using that specific piano? And where that comes from is, if you look in these settings here, it has some default values for the sounds. There are different sound fonts available in the tool, and sound fonts are kind of like, the way I like to describe it is, back in the days when, there were different keyboard, you'd buy a different keyboard. You could buy a Roland keyboard, or a Yamaha keyboard, or a Casio keyboard, or a Korg keyboard, or a Sequential Circuits keyboard, or a Kurzweil keyboard, right? And they all kind of agreed on the same, like, okay, the first sound is going to be a piano, and they're going to have a harpsichord, and they're going to have a violin. But if you played the piano on those 5 different keyboards, they would not sound the same. And that's the way to think of these sound fonts. They're kind of like different manufacturers' keyboards. They all have the same set of sounds. So they all have these, like, 128 standard, what are called general MIDI sounds. These were agreed on literally like 40 years ago. But they don't sound the same. And so there are these 5 different sound fonts, and they all have sort of a different quality to them. So for example, okay, so you have the 5 sound fonts, and then you actually pick the instruments that you want to use by default from these lists here. And this is the instrument you want to use for the melody, and this is the instrument you want to use for the chords. And so for example, I'll just leave this as acoustic grand piano for both of those, and I'll start out by setting it to the fluid sound font. This is what it'll use if someone hasn't specifically put program information in their ABC, because you can do that. And I do that for like the Tunebooks, where you say, I want you to use the fluid sound font, and I want you to use, the harpsichord sound and the bass sound. You can literally put that in the ABC, and I'll show you how to do that. But when you don't have any directives in there, how do you pick what you want? So, for example, I'm going to tell it instead. I'm going to change it here. I'm going to say I want by default, if there's no other settings, I want it to use the harpsichord and I want it to use the fluid sound font. And I'll go ahead and play this tune. Matter of fact, let me do something here. I'm going to just strip out the chords here, just so you just hear just the melody. I'm going to play this, and it'll be the harpsichord from the fluid sound font. I just wanted to show you that, for example, if we change that to the Fat Boy sound font, and these come from third parties, so that's why they have funny names, and I play that again, it'll sound different. Like a different manufacturer's harpsichord. We'll try it with the M score. This is a version of the one that MuseScore uses. Let's try. The Canvas is a kind of lo-fi video game kind of sound more. Let's see. So I wanted to show you that if you want to have, if you wanted to have it so that, every single time you play a tune, you end up with the whistle sound, instead of having to listen to piano every time, you can just set that to whistle. And now when we play, we'll always get a whistle. So that gives you control over the defaults. But even more powerfully, so for example, I have these tunebooks. Let me bring up like in a tunebook here that would be very specific to a particular instrument. Oh, sorry, wrong page. Let's go back to tunebooks, and let's say, okay, I'll give you an example here. Like I'll have a tunebook for mandolin. Which one is this? Okay, 50 session tunes. Okay, so I'll download this tunebook. And when I build these tunebooks, generally, if it's a mandolin book, hopefully I did it on this one, is I'll decide that the instrument for the playback, we'll see, I think I set this one to something that sounded strings. Let's see. And this book has the tunes in 3 different speeds, I believe. Let me double check that. Yeah. So yeah, these tune books have slow, medium, and fast speed. And see, if this was the case where I used the section headers to denote the sections for the different tunes. So like, let's just go to the full speed section here, and we'll just say Alexander's. And so now when I click on this, hello internet. Thank you. Okay, so when I play this tune, you'll hear it'll be like a string sound. Kind of a plucked sound. And you're like, well, I don't ever want to hear that. One of the things you can do is you can actually go in and you can say, I want to override all MIDI programs and volumes in the ABC. If you click this button here, click this checkbox here, it'll always, no matter what other tunebooks have in them, in theory, let's see, if I go back to that tunebook now, okay, Mike, let's see if your program actually does what it says it's supposed to do. Let's go to the, go back to the full speed, and we'll try it again. I should get the whistle when it finally loads. I don't know why things are slow. Load. One more time. Thank you. Let's see if we get the whistle. That just allows you to override. Again, these are kind of like, slightly crazy stuff, but I just wanted to show you this was possible. So we'll set this back. So I really like, my personal favorite, I set fluid as the default because that's the ABC.js default. I use Fat Boy primarily as the sound font I use because I think it, I love the sound of it, particularly on listen to the piano on this. I think it's just really pretty. just a really pretty one. And you can see there's actually directives here. This is a private directive to my tool. It tells it which sound font to use. I'm going to change that to fluid. This would be the default one. It's a little bit more brash.
Yeah.
Kind of annoying, but one of the things too, as long as we're talking about, let's go ahead and clear this, and we'll just add a porn pipe here. I'm going to just clear out all of this MIDI related stuff. So let's say you're working on a tunebook. As a matter of fact, let's do this a different way. I'm going to open up those. I'm going to open up those polkas again. Let's see, sleep note polkas. Okay, so I've got all these polkas loaded up here, and they don't have any MIDI information at all in them. They don't have any program information at all. But let's say I'm setting this up, and I want to, I want to have it so that no matter what, I'm going to just send this tune to someone, and I want it to play with a particular sound. So what you can do is you can go to the advanced here, and there's two ways to do this. The way they used to do it is you use this inject MIDI sound font melody chords and volumes. And this is where you could pick like, well, I want to inject the, let's say, Musinkite, and I want to inject the melody as Glockenspiel, and I want to inject, I don't have any chords or volumes, so and then I just click inject all tunes. And what you'll see is it actually stuck some information here so that now when we play this tune, we're going to get a Glockenspiel. Okay. And that was the way that, until about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, that would be how you would primarily, stick. And they notice I did it for all of the tunes. So this way, if you have 200 tunes, you don't have to manually paste it into each one. It'll take care of it for you. A lot of the things, these are things that I added because I'm running into this all the time. Like, Jesus, I'm having to bring this into like an editor, and I'm having to find all the tunes and do these like crazy copy and paste and regex stuff, trying to figure out how to, and I'm like, this is stupid. Someone should automate it. Oh yeah, I'm the guy who can automate it. So let's see, I think I had those tunes. Yeah, okay, so I still have them in. See, this was a case where I had the snapshot already of where we were back when we were playing with it, so I just restored it. The way to do it these days, if you want to play around with instruments, is go into the MIDI Instrument Explorer. This is a player that exposes that whole interface. So we can play the tune here. Okay, well, I don't want that. I want instead, I want that to be done on marimba. And then you have to click this reload tunes, and now it'll play it with the. Okay, and then when you actually have decided that you like it, then it'll you can actually inject. Then it'll inject it into the. This happens to work for one tune, but that's a way to kind of explore the sounds in real time. Is to use the. I should really have that be able to do all of them. That's maybe a future thing, but yeah, this allows you to kind of explore the. Surprised I didn't do that. Allows you to explore the different sounds rather than having to sort of try it, guess it, play it. You can actually just keep playing. You can say, well, I'm going to try that with some more again. Play it until you have it the way you want, and then you can actually inject it into the ABC. And then I think if you wanted to do all of them, you would have to still use this one. You'd have to have this match, and then you could do the inject all tunes. I should really add that to the other one.
Question?
Yes.
The music that you played that just has chord names, it always seems to have the same sort of stride piano. Is that, why is that? I mean, if you didn't want the umchuk, why is that? Is that the default, and can it be changed?
Yeah. So that's a good question. So ABC.js has that sort of pattern built in. One of the things that I added, let's see if I have an example of it. I added what I called custom rhythm patterns. I haven't played with them in a while. Let me see if I have a good example of that. You do have some control over it. Do I have a utility example? It's been a while since I played with this stuff because I did this a while because I needed it for a different reason.
Can you add a boron backing?
You'd have to do it manually. Let me give you, let's see if I can find a good example here of, let me bring in, yeah, I'm just trying to think the best way to demonstrate this.
Just thump your computer louder and faster.
There you go.
Let me go ahead and
It's been known to happen.
Okay, so there is this concept of, where did I put it? Hold on a second here. I did this originally for metronomes. Just been a while since I've worked with this feature. It's see, I have to go to my own user guide now. 1 second here. No, literally, it's been months since I played with this, but it is possible to modify the rhythm patterns. Here it is, custom rhythm patterns. Right. So yeah, ABC has boom check. So the way this works, this is kind of crazy, is I'll just kind of copy one of the. I did this primarily because people were wanting stuff for like 7/8. So I'm going to use. Let me clear this. I'm going to use a reel. It'll be easier to show with a reel. Let's just clear all this out. We'll just leave things at the default for a second. Okay. So, and again, this is all described in the manual. So if we just play this by default, we should just get that normal kind of boom check. Okay, so that's the default. That's ABCGS kind of did that. And originally that's all was possible. So I added this kind of esoteric way of messing with messing with the rhythm patterns. And again, it's all described in the manual. And basically the rhythm patterns have three elements. They have a primary boom, they have a secondary boom, and they have a chick.
Is that ABCGS terminology then, or is that your terminology?
ABCS. No, well, this is what I came up with because I kind of looked at how Paul had implemented. I mean, the fact that it has any backup at all is kind of remarkable, but I kind of looked at how he did it, and I thought, well, and I needed this for be able to do the metronomes because I didn't want to have to inject like completely new tracks, but I wanted to be able to create rhythm patterns that I could I could use the chords. I could use the chord system to create a metronome, and to do that, I needed to have some ability to control the positioning of the metronome timings. And so, what fell out of that was this basically idea, and this is pretty esoteric, but it is possible, of this ABCS boom check directive where you give it the meter that you want it to do, and then you give it this little encoded string and then a number, and I'll explain each of those. The string is first off, let me make sure that I didn't break this. Okay, this should actually be it should be 4 and not 8. That's why. Generally, the number of characters has to match the bottom number of the meter. So basically, a capital B is a primary boom. A little b, small letter b, is a secondary boom. It just has to do with the volume of, and so it's like you have that boom chick. It's the kind of alternating bass. So the if it was all booms, it would be like, I'll just play it with that. You'll just hear it'll kind of go bang, 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 bang. Let's see.
If it was 50s rock and roll, it'd be, yeah.
Okay, and if I have it just alternate between boom and boom, now it's just going to go alternating bass. Right? If I just want to just do one boom and nothing else for the rest of the measure. I wanted to do a chick at the end of the measure. So this can be really interesting, for example.
Yeah.
This can be really...
I was going to say 50s rock and roll, you just make it hit on the third beat.
Yeah. And this can be actually...
Totally hip.
This can be interesting on like a jig. So by default, okay, let's see, here's the jig pattern. I'm going to turn off the accordion just for sanity's sake. That's doing, basically, I think what that's doing is, let's see,
yeah, boom X little boom, wouldn't it be?
I think it's going to be, I think what it's doing is it's doing boom, chick, boom, chick, something like that. Let's play that. Oh, I didn't have the right.
Oh, right, chick, not boom.
Yeah, I don't have the right meter here. 6/8. There we go. Let's see what we get. So I could change that if I wanted to be like boom, chick, chick, boom, chick, chick. Okay, so you kind of get the idea, and there's more about it in the manual. This was particularly useful because this also, the only reason this exists originally, before there ever was metronomes, was because there was a whole discussion of 7/8 tunes on the session.org. Let me see if I've got an example of a 7/8, because there's like two different ways of having. First off, ABC.js didn't know what to do with 7/8s to start with, and so someone, you know, like this top tune. One, two, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. But sometimes you hear like 1, 2, 3. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. It's like, where do you put it? You need some control over it. So that's where the original like need for the custom patterns. But where it got particularly interesting was how to deal with the metronomes for sevens.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Yeah, you know, and so there's a feature in the tool, for example, because like here's this first tune. Let's play it again. I'm going to do something here. This is something you can do if you ever want to just mute. You can just change the chord prog to mute. Now we won't have any chords. And now I'm going to actually inject a metronome into that pattern. And you can see it injected a boom chick pattern here. And let's play it. And we can play with that. So that's a boom chick, boom chick. What is it? Boom chick, boom chick, boom chick, chick. If we wanted it to be like boom chick, chick, boom chick, and play it. I didn't get the right number of characters. I have one too many. There we go. Play it. Yeah, so if you really get into the weeds with this stuff, you can have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, that's great. Can you to even go further in? Can you have more than one? Like, can you change the chord rhythm partway through the tune, so the A part is different from the B part?
Unfortunately, no. There's no way to do that. At least I haven't figured out a way to do it.
Okay. No. Sometimes it's prudent not to get too complicated.
Well, I mean, part of it is to understand that what happens is internally, what's going on is that ABC.js interprets, you know, it takes the ABC and it interprets it into essentially a MIDI, internally into MIDI, and then it uses a MIDI player basically to play it.
I was going to say that's one case where you could just take the MIDI and paste the first half and the second half together and play it as MIDI.
Yeah, you could probably do it with an externally, but you know, internally it was like the fact that even just like doing getting it to do like custom rhythms at all, because it's injecting a rhythm track along like in a separate MIDI track along with the melody, and that's how it does the chords. That's why I decided it was just very simple by setting up a custom rhythm and then very specific instruments on the rhythm track. I'm using, I think, a woodblock is it's literally using the chord structure. You see this little E at the start? That you'll see that whenever you have the metronomes on. So like if we just like bring in, sorry, let me inject just like the coolies. So if we play coolies, I'm going to take out the accordion again, just so. Okay, so like we play this, and I'm going to make that fat boy, so it's not quite so harsh. When I enable the metronome, you'll see all the chords go away, except for this one, and that's there to just kick off the metronome, which is actually a rhythm track, chord track. It just has a very, very weird structure. You lose all the chords. That was the trade-off. You get a metronome or you get your chords. When you disable it, they come back. They all come back. The other thing is people may not be aware is you can change the speed of the playback here on this menu. You can change that to, if you wanted it at 50%. All of the players have that feature where you can change this, and you can also use the up and down arrows. This is a percentage of the original speed. Another thing the other thing too is from any of these players, from the player, you can always export your files. So you can save it as a WAV file, as an MP3 file, as a MIDI file. And
you could save it to Fourscore.
I don't know about Fourscore. If you save it as a MIDI, so for example, if I save this as a MIDI file, and I'm going to open that MIDI file, and I'll switch over to where it'll open. It'll open in, I believe, GarageBand.
When you're saying export to Fourscore, are you saying for the score or the audio?
Actually, both.
Yeah, because the score you can just export as a PDF.
Yeah, so you can see here, right. This is actually GarageBand. This is GarageBand, which has now consumed the MIDI file from. That's the MIDI file that was output by my tool that is being used in GarageBand, for example. Let's go back to the tool here. Okay, you seeing coolies again? Yes, good. All right, so yeah, so you have some ability to export it. MP3 files, you can control the quality of the MP3 file actually right here if you want a lower resolution. One other feature that people may not be aware of is I'm going to load up an entire Tunebook here. I'm going to load up that, I'd like to use those sleeve notes demo. So here's all the sleeve notes polkas, and let's say I've put together a Tunebook for my for my group, and I want to send out all the MP3 files for it. There's a feature now that, there has been for a while under Advanced, which is export all tunes as MP3, and what this will do is it will generate an MP3. It just basically kind of like automates bringing up the player and then clicking the MP3 button. But the other thing it can do is it can actually put in a two-bar pickup measures for you behind the tunes. So I'm going to I'm going to tell it to do that, and then you can say if you want it to do 3 times through the tune. Your tunes have to be structured properly, but if they don't have like excessive pickup notes or something, this works really nicely. I'm going to just leave it alone. And I'm going to tell it okay. And what it's going to do now is you'll watch it. It'll just kind of like, it's like a little robot. It just goes through and goes through each of the tunes, loads it in the player, and does the export MP3. And now we end up with, for some reason my computer's decided it wants to play all these tunes. Now you can hear them. I'm just playing them in my MP3 player, but you can hear it. We have those 9 MP3 files now, saved. So that's a nice way to kind of export your entire tunebook as MP3 if you want it. You can send those to people. What other things? Let's go into. Okay. So here's another scenario. So for example, I have a book I've done. This is a bunch of tunes, about 50 odd tunes. And this was one I did. This was a very specific thing for box players, and it's not standard MP3. I'm sorry, it's not standard ABC chord annotation. I was trying to show something here for box players. But if you do have a tune book and it's got all these chords written in it, and you're like, I don't want all those chords in there. First, I'm going to do grab a snapshot. You can go into advanced, and there's these options at the top which are show and hide features, and hide. There's usually hide, which means it's not actually destroying the ABC. It's just temporarily hiding those values from the ABC. And if you print the tune book, they won't show up in the tune book. But then I use this a lot, which is strip chords and injected tab. And what this does is you'll see is it literally gets rid of those chords. It strips them out of the ABC. If you want to do your own, that can be very handy at times. The other thing that it's very useful for, and again, if we go into advanced, you can see that now we've got the annotation stripper as well. This can be used sometimes, if you want to get rid of a whole bunch of extra tags, like if we want to get rid of, you can see like all the name tags for this rhythm style and all that went away. It can be used to kind of give you like very clean starting point ABC. Again, it just depends. And it'll tell you if things are present in the ABC, whether or not these things are enabled. Let's see, where this can be very useful. Actually, let me stop for a second. Before I go forward, any questions? Because I'm going to start talking a little bit about tablature injection and how that works. And I just want to make sure that anybody's had any questions on just the basic operation before we get into that.
Well, it may be esoteric, but the timing of triplets, as they're noted in Irish tunes, they're shown as triplets, but they really mean 2 16th notes and an 8th note. So they're not really sounded as triplets.
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It really depends. Sometimes they are triplets.
So a question got asked a while ago about injecting the rhythms and whether you can use it in two different rhythms in two different parts of the tune. That rhythm thing that you stuck in, couldn't you stick that in the middle of the tune and have it change rhythms?
No. I mean, the custom rhythm stuff, no, that gets pre-processed before the tune is ever even rendered. There really isn't a way in ABC.js to have it change the way it renders the. One would have to rewrite ABC.js basically to have it change the custom rhythm on the fly. I mean, certainly ABC.js can handle. So let me give you this is kind of a bizarre case here. Let's add like a reel and a jig, and I'm going to take the second half of the cache, and I'm going to stick it. I have never actually tried this. I'm going to stick it on the second half of the coolies, okay? And so I've actually done a meter change right in the middle of the tune right here. And I'm going to guess that it's going to switch when it does the backup. I'm going to guess that ABC.js can handle this, but I don't think it won't be able to handle a custom rhythm pattern. That's an interesting thing. I have never tried this, but no, I'm going to guess that it would not handle a custom rhythm change. It will. I think ABC.js can handle this. So let's see what happens. I bet it plays a rhythm pattern, a real pattern for the first. I think that. Sorry. I think I'll change that in the defaults next time I release the tool. We're going to change that to Fatboy. All right. So let's see if we get a real backup for the first part. Listen to. Yeah, so ABCDS can handle itself can handle meter changes in the middle of tunes as far as backup, but what there isn't a system right now to be able to handle more than one custom rhythm pattern within a tune. That certainly could be added. I'd have to think about how to do that in the future, but
You were talking while the thing was playing and we couldn't actually hear you.
Oh, sorry. So what I said was is like ABCGS can handle these meter changes as far as the backup chords within the tune. Because the custom rhythm pattern is a sort of a thing that layers on top of that, it would have to right now there's only one. The changes I've made to ABCGS to support custom rhythm patterns essentially look at the first instance of the override that's. If you have one of those ABCG's boom chick patterns in the ABC, it really can only handle one of those at a time. So it would have to be extended to handle like multiple custom rhythm patterns for a tune. But I can tell you, so far, no one until we've had this conversation has asked for that. So, but right now it doesn't support it. But ABCGS itself can handle changing meters in the middle of a tune as far as backup.
It's certainly, I'm the one that started that question, and it would be nice, but it's really not important. It just would be, sometimes it would sound more beautiful to change that.
Yeah. Again,
I didn't even know that you could change rhythm patterns. So
yeah,
that was why nobody's asked.
Yeah, I've never tried it either.
That was totally cool.
Yeah. I was kind of glad to see that it worked. Yeah, I mean, basically, I'm trying to address the 90% use case, but I do write everything down. Like, I have a list of like requested features, and some of them are, make it in, and some of them don't. I kind of look at it. And a lot of times it's like I don't even know how to do that. I'll give you an example. Very early on in the, actually, let me clear this and open up the sleep notes again. Very early on in this effort, I was contacted by a gentleman who specializes in Chinese flutes and said, in China, for Chinese flute music, they use a different tablature system. They use a different notation system than the Western system. They use this number system where the music is notated by the flutes are in different keys. They're like in D and G and A and C, and the music is numbers that are the scale tone numbers based on the root of the flute. So if it's a tune if it's a tune in D and they're playing it on a D flute and it's a D, they'd say I think it's a 0, and 1 would be E. But if you played that same tune on a G flute, it would be a D, E, F, G. It'd be a 4. I'm like, that's interesting. And he actually sent me some money. He said, if you can make this happen, that would be great. I'm like, this was in like March. I had no idea, and this was before I got into custom tablatures. And then at some point I realized, after I had done all this tablature work for accordions and other stuff, that I had the tools to be able to do the Chinese flute tablature. So I do want to talk a little bit about tablatures, and this is going to be interesting mostly to people who are doing working with accordions and concertinas and Chinese bamboo flutes, as well as Comhaltas. There's this weird, not weird, but there's this different system they use. If you've ever been to a workshop in Ireland, or you went to a workshop with someone who was from Ireland who was trying to denote a tune on a blackboard or whiteboard, you notice that they use something that looks like ABC, but it's not exactly the same ABC that we use. It's I've heard it generically called Comhaltas ABC or chalkboard ABC, and I'll kind of show you what that looks like. So I have all of these tablatures available, and one of the tablatures that's available is just the note names underneath. For people who don't read music, it just gives you the note names, but you can see it's using the standard ABC note names here. So like the lowercase d for the second octave. It turns out in Ireland, they don't, that's not how they would denote this. They would denote it using a slightly different system. And so, for example, there's a way of showing the note name tablature using this Comhaltas style tablature. And so you can see here, for example, they don't use the lowercase d for the second octave D. They use a D with a tick mark. And they consider the C in the second octave to be their normal C natural. So for example, I'm going to just add a note at the beginning here, just so you can see. Let me make that a C natural. Okay, so in normal ABC, right, we think of this note, this C, as being just C, right? But in the Comhaltas system, their scale starts on D, and they consider that C to be one octave lower, and they consider the normal C to be what we would like think of as the C above middle C in the thing. And so, you know, one of the problems is that, you know, in Ireland, if they get their tunes off of the session.org and they bring them into any kind of a tool that shows the note names, it doesn't match what they teach the kids, right? And so by having the ability to show the music along with the Comhaltas naming is a huge deal for them, right? So, you know, so the tool is able to, so for example, just being able to do this, they can like go get a tune from the session.org, which clearly isn't in their format, but they can create a handout that has the format in it that they use for the students. Okay, so like this is, I mean, it's a little thing, but it simply wasn't possible before, and this makes it, this automates it for them. And so, you know, this is one example where, you know, the flexibility of ABC.js combined with being able to process, because what's going on here is the same thing. Creating these custom names for the notes is exactly the same thing that's going on for this whistle tab, where I'm able to sort of, you know, what happens is with these tablature systems is that you get back kind of a scale tone, and you have to figure out what to do to display it. And so in the case of whistle, I simply shove in, there's a font, there's a whistle font, and I simply shove in the right character for the whistle font, taking into account that, you know, sometimes on tunes that go below the range of the whistle, as a whistle player, you would fold them up an octave, and so there's logic that will automatically, you know, generate that for them. So for example, what is that called? The comment set. Sorry, I just need to find a particular set here to show you. It would be the Coleman set, yeah. So like in, it would be in, is this either, no, that doesn't do it. I need to find its tune. Here, let me just get a bunch of reels here. Let me find an example of one that goes below the range of the whistle. Great, all of these aren't below the range of the whistle. I'm going to go get one off the session.org here. Let's, oh, here, we'll look for Maudabon Chapel.
Dowd's number 9.
Yeah, that's a good one. Maudabon Chapel's even better because it goes all over the heck and gone. So you see how low it is here, right? This, like, these are below the range of the whistle. The whistle starts at D. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. I'll bring it into, okay, so you can see we got all these notes here. It goes down below the range of the whistle. If you put that in whistle format, it'll automatically fold those up for you. So this is what a whistle player would do when it played, because they can't play this B, they can't play this G, so they would play it up an octave, right? So a whistle player playing this would play. Sorry. Right, so I'm able to like, because I know, you know, how whistle players play. I'm able to change the tablature to show them the folding, right? So there are some interesting things that can be done just within the within this kind of tablature. There's two kinds of tablature available in the tool. The other thing is for the stringed instruments. We're able to, so for example, this is mandolin tab, and so this is on the D string on the 5th fret. But if you're using a capo, you can actually set a capo position. So if we could say capo at 2, and you'll see all these shift, and these are the capo position relative to the these are the fingering position relative to the capo. But now we don't have this note available because we're too low there. Let me open up. Here, let me just get some jigs up here. Okay, so now we're relative to the capo for the notes. If you turn on this setting, this show stringed instrument names on tablature, it'll actually show you the capo position. But that takes up a lot of vertical space when you're printing, it turns out. So a lot of people like to turn that off just because it compacts the thing, and then they might just denote, let's say capo on 2 or something in the title. So so those are the kinds of things you can do with the with just this kind of tablature. When I talk about this kind of tablature, what I mean is that the sort of tablature where you have the notes above and then the usually stringed instrument tablature below, or whistle tablature below, or the note names.
Can you change the key of the whistle? Like you might play a tune on the G or the D whistle?
No, you cannot. You can't. It's all for D whistle right now. I mean, you could transpose the tune. So if you wanted, you could transpose the tune, and change the fingering. That would be effectively how you would play. Let's say on a, let's see, if we transposed it up, that would be the fingering on a C whistle, but the notes are not going to match. So I mean, it's possible to get the tablature, but there's no way to hide the notation. So there's really not. I don't really support alternate whistle keys. Okay. But again, because 90% of the people, 95% of the people playing on D whistle, when they're playing on a C whistle, they're not actually thinking in terms of the notes. They're thinking just in terms of the fingering. So it's not something that people have been asking for. Plus the tunebooks, again, I do these tunebooks for whistle, and and the vast majority of people consuming those are going to be newer players who don't read music, and they're going to be on they're probably going to be just on a D whistle. But I wanted to show you this other kind of tablature that is a little bit more esoteric, and this has to do with fingerings for instruments like the box, the concertina, and specifically the one that was most interesting recently was fiddle fingerings. And so when we're looking at mandolin tablature, we're looking at, this tells you which fret to play. Okay, so if you know mandolins are tuned G, D, A, E. So here's an E, so it'd be the 0, so it'd be open string, and then the F sharp would be the 2nd string, and so on. And this is the 5th fret on the A string, right? But of course on fiddle, they don't have frets, right? But when they're teaching, when you're first learning to play, it's more a question of which finger, and then you have to put your finger in the right position. But the first thing is like, which finger are you going to use? Are you going to use 1, 2, 3, or 4? So the first, this was actually the most recent addition to it, but it's one that was asked, a fiddle teacher asked me about this. It actually came out of a discussion on the session.org where people were arguing, as they do commonly on that site, about whether or not fiddle fingerings were useful or not. And because I have a pretty flexible system now for writing these kinds of tablatures, about 2 hours later, I just released a standalone utility that did this. And then it got very quiet after that, because it was like, well, here you go, use it or don't use it. But anyway, this inject fiddle fingerings, what it does, as you can see, is now it puts these numbers below. I'm going to, let me reopen that and make the tablature a little bit larger, just so it's a little bit easier to see. Let me go into tablature injection, and we'll make the tablature font size 12, okay, so again, I'm going to inject the fiddle fingerings. And you can see now it's putting these numbers underneath that show the fingering. This is which finger to use as opposed to which fret to use. And if you actually combine that with the mandolin tablature, now you have both the fret and finger numbers. Again, it's very specific. It's something that a particular teacher asked for, and then I took I took the things, some of the tunebooks, and released them as tunebooks with fiddle fingerings. And I think that's a great thing for beginners. They can see the notation, they can see the fingering. Again, it's just an aid. It's available there. But you can see one of the basic things is that this is very different. The whole look of this is different. It's putting numbers below the notes. And there's a whole bunch of different tablatures available. I'm going to go ahead and clear out the injected tab there. So, for example, this is for box players. Box players are interested in, hold on a second here. I've got two kinds of tablature going on at the same time. So box players are interested in, it's back to 10, actually 11, because these are jigs. Box players they need to know, which button and which row and which direction, because boxes have two rows. One's typically in B and the other C, and one's in B, or it's C sharp and D. It depends on the style of instrument. And so they want to know, which button and which direction to play that note on their instrument. And so this shows you that, that for that particular instrument. And so now we've got all these tunes with injected tab for this is effectively like how to play the tune if you don't read music on your box. And it supports both the C sharp D. I've kind of put them next to each other here, C sharp D and BC systems. I'm going to have it. That's why it wasn't stripping that. Let me clear that all out there. Same thing for concertina, Anglo Concertina. It turns out Anglo Concertina, now here's the thing with Anglo Concertina, there's two different styles of Anglo Concertinas. There's Wheatstone style and Jeffrey style that have different button layouts. And there's different styles of playing. There's what's called along the rows playing versus cross row playing. All of that can be set up here in this tablature injection settings. So you can say, do I want that tablature above or below the notation? What if it's a concertina, which style is it? Which kind of playing is it? That sort of thing. So for example, if I wanted it to be above the notation instead, and I could say I wanted Jeffrey's style, and I'm going to turn that off just for now. And I could even customize the button names if I wanted. But I'm going to go ahead and inject, let's say, concertina tab, and you can see this is now above instead of below. And all of this is customizable. What these letters are, what the symbol is, all of that is completely customizable in this convection. If I wanted it to say, Z for push and Q for pull, and sorry, I'm going to strip it and then re-inject it. And you can see now if we do it, we're going to get Q's and Z's, right? So the idea was to create a flexible, because there's like 15 different systems people use for concertina tab in the world. Like for example, there's this other system called the Gary Coover style, which is, there's apparently whole tune books and whole, there's a lot of people that really love this system, and it's a little different. You can see it puts notes above and below. The notes on the below are buttons that are on the left side of the concertina, and the ones on the top are on the right side of the concertina, and a line above means it's a pull versus a push, and that sort of thing. So the idea being that there's a very flexible system in the tool for to do these very kind of specialized and somewhat often esoteric tablature formats. For example, I was talking about the bamboo flute tablature here. So we've actually picked the key of the flute. It's in D, and you can see now we get the numbers, and then a dot above the note means the second octave, and the dot below the note, there are some here. I'm sorry, there are none in this tune. They go below the D. It would mean the octave below the root of the flute. So the idea being that you know, these are what I have now. I've got this box, the different boxes, concertina and the fiddle fingerings. The Comhaltas transform is an interesting one. So I talked about the talked about the display of the notes when it was in this mode, whether it used the cultus, like right now we're showing the cultus format where there's no lowercase letters, it's all uppercase letters. But it might be that they say, well, I got this ABC, so this is the ABC over here that's like right off the session.org probably. It's got lowercase letters in it. But they don't want to, they want to actually have their ABC, because here's the weird thing is, like, except for the C notes, because I talked about how they have a different meaning for what the first octave C and second octave C is. You can actually, it's actually quite valid. For example, I'm going to take this D right here, and I'm going to change that letter from a D, lowercase d, to a D. If you know anything about ABC, I'm going to change it to a D with a tick. And you see it's still a D. So, you know, that's a perfectly valid way to represent a second octave D. So it's very, very close using the cultus format to standard ABC. But if they literally don't, if they really want the ABC, and this is very different than just show, in other words, when we show it, they could take this generated PDF and it would be in the PDF and they would have the notes. But if they don't want to work with ABC, they don't want to work with standard ABC, they want to work with cultus ABC. They've got this tune that they got from the session.org, and they want to turn it into something they're more familiar with. They can literally do this. They can go into Comhaltas ABC transform. We'll say standard ABC to Comhaltas ABC. And you can see that it's actually changed the ABC to be in the cultus format, and then they can work with it that way. And again, this is more on the editing side rather than on the display side. So if they're more comfortable working in that format, they're able to work in that format, and they can, and it'll automatically change the format of the ABC into their format. So again, this was something that was requested by someone in a cultus branch in Ireland, and I thought, yeah, okay. And there's like nothing else that can do this, you know? And it was like, this was not that hard to do, so why not, you know? I mean, this thing's very, very flexible in terms of what's possible. And, you know, so as I get requests from people for, you know, for these specific features, you know, if I can accommodate it, I generally do. The way I actually do a lot of this work is, it's a little behind the scenes thing, is a lot of these features, for example, the Comhaltas generator, it actually started out like this. This is a standalone tool. I always write these standalone tools. These are all available. They're all on the GitHub site. You know, where I build it first as a standalone thing, and then I test it here, and then these tools talk directly to the ABC tools. So you can just click a button and it uses creates a share link, just like it was the regular ABC tool, and it launches that share link, or you can copy it or save it. And so I'll bring up a tool in a standalone utility like this. And sometimes, like for the cultist folks, this would have been enough. I could have said, hey, you can just use this tool to do the job for you. And then at some point it was like, it really kind of made sense to build it in. And so once something's built and debugged in a standalone tool, then it's pretty straightforward for me to then integrate it into the main tool. So a lot of the like more advanced features start out as these standalone utilities. Literally did one yesterday. If you're on the group on Facebook, you saw that I talked about this JSON search engine. This is amazing. This guy contacted me yesterday. He wanted to write. Sorry, gotta launch it again. There it is. Okay, so he has he had, what was his name? Oh my God, my brain is not working. 1 second here. I just want to make sure I get his name right. Gavin, yeah, that's right, Gavin Hennigan. So Gavin Hennigan contacted me yesterday, and he said he had he has this database that he put together of it's 1,000 tunes, and he's got multiple variations of the tunes that he scraped over the years from various tune sources like the Session and Heinrich Norbeck's site, and just. And he had this big database, 20 megabytes of text, okay? 20 megabytes of text, ABC. And what he wanted to do is he had it as a JSON file, which is like a structured database, not database exactly, but a structured file. And he wanted to be able to search through that database and find all the tunes that matched a certain pattern and then display those as guitar tablature. And he was asking me questions about ABC.js, and and he's clearly a IT kind of guy and probably could write. I said, this sounds like a perfect thing for one of the standalone tools. And so, 2 hours later, we had this. And so, for example, I can open his file. Let me just find it here. It's in documents. Yeah, it's this. So, and then I can search for tunes. So I can say like made behind the bar. Let's say made behind the bar. We'll just say made. Actually, made behind, that'd be fine. And this goes and it searches his database. This is all being done just in the browser. It searches it and it puts all the tunes. Oh, there's a tune called Made Behind the Barbecue. Kiss the Made Behind the Barbecue. I like that. It finds all the tunes in his database. And you can see here it says like variation 2 of 8, variation 1 of 8. And then you can click test output in ABC Tools. And then it launches the results with the guitar tablature directly into the ABC Tools, right? And so rather than this guy having to spend, a month with a project, I said, wait, I can do this like in 2 hours, right? And this is the flexibility of this whole system is it does what it does, but to make it do things, specialized things, is fairly straightforward at this point. So, I'm always interested in what people want to do with this stuff. By the way, I posted this link to this tool on the group, and I also put the database file, this file, which is like this 20 megabyte collection of tunes, up in the file section of the group. And so you can, he said, feel free to download this. Feel free to give this away. He was fine with it. So I said, okay. So you can download that database, and play with this tool if you want. This is not something I'm going to. This is a perfect example of something I'm not going to integrate into the ABC tools because it's a bit too specialized. But there are other things like that. For example, I've got a guy who did this. He wanted a D, G, and C, GC. This is more like Morris music. Tablature generator for those style of instruments. But this particular style of instrument is fraught with peril as far as tablature. There's no agreement on it, but he wanted somebody to play with. So like this thing, it can generate tablature for a style of instrument that I don't support inside my tool, but it integrates with the tool using the standalone. And it uses the ShareLink infrastructure to be able to directly take the output of what this tool creates and then bring it into the ABC tools. So the tools themselves are kind of they can be kind of a hub as a way to, if you're doing some specialized ABC processing that, you want to do some kind of statistical analysis, or you want to do your own generation of custom rhythm patterns, or whatever it is you want to do, and you want to be able to send that result and use the ABC tools as the way to play them and to render them and to make your tunebooks. It's really, really easy to do. And the beauty about all this stuff is that all of the source code for all of these standalone utilities is also on the GitHub site. The GitHub site, which is available from, the easiest way to find it is just go into the user guide. At the very end, there's a link to source code, and there's a link right here, and that'll take you to my GitHub that has all the source code available for the tool. And you can literally just download the zip file right here and unzip it, and then just run abctools.html, and the tool, you will have the tools running on your system, and everything will work. The only thing that won't work is share links. And the reason is the share links won't work is that the share, because you're not on an actual like web server, it doesn't have a proper URL. So, having a share link to a file on your computer doesn't make any sense to anybody else. So the only thing that actually requires you to have this like hosted on a web server somewhere. Not that there's any server-side code running, but just so it can get a proper URL is the share links. And it's the same thing for like any PDF tunebooks you would generate locally that have links in them. Those links would be pointing to your file system, not to a server. So you have to just take that into account. So let's see. So yeah, so that's the kind of plug-in system that's available for people who want to do really specialized stuff. And it's you know, the boilerplate for all that's in those standalone tool sources. I think that is pretty much. Oh, we haven't talked about the explorers. Oh my goodness, we did talk about the MIDI instrument explorer, but I do want to talk a little bit about the swing explorer and the Grace Explorer. So let me go ahead and open up, actually let's start from scratch here, and we'll go ahead and add just cache, because jigs are a great way of showing this, and I'm going to just take out everything here. Okay, so let's go ahead and play the cache straight. Matter of fact, I'm going to even strip out the chords just to make it even, whoops, I'm going to strip out the chords just to make it even clearer what's going on here. So let's go ahead and play this. This is going to have no swing. It's just going to be very straight. You're able to hear that, right? If we go into, if we want to play around with swing, there's okay, so again, under the advanced, there's a swing explorer. And this is a player. And the way it works is that you can set a swing offset, and these are arbitrary units. Positive numbers make more swing, negative numbers make it sound basically more Scottish, would be the best way to describe it. But I'm just going to pick a value here. I'm going to pick kind of a high value of 0.5, and I'm going to reload it. And now when we play it, kind of over the top. Try something more reasonable, like 2.5. So this allows you to play around with the swing, and I find it to be instrument dependent. You know, so sometimes on certain instruments, certain amounts of swing sound better. Once you have it the way you like it, you can just click Inject Swing into the ABC, and if you look here, it actually sticks some annotation here. So now when we play this tune, or if it's in a tune book, it'll play with that swing. Now for hornpipes, let me go ahead and clear this, and we'll add a hornpipe. For hornpipes, I swing them by default unless you turn it off. So even though I have a specific swing directive in here, I'm going to play this, and you'll hear that it plays with a swing. Just because it's loud. Which is a heck of a lot better than it not swinging the hornpipes, this is what it would sound like. So the automatic swinging of hornpipes is a setting that's turned on by default. It's right here, automatically swing hornpipes, and the amount of swing for the hornpipes is set here. So if I wanted that to be more extreme, I could set that to 0.5, and now it's going to be very strange. It can even be negative, which, like I say, makes it sound kind of Scottish snappy. So minus 0.5, now it's going to sound different. But I like the hornpipes at that 0.25 default. Now, it does it literally by looking for that in any form in the tune to figure out it's a hornpipe. If it sees that, it'll automatically do the swing. But you do have the ability to set the swing manually for a tune just by saying swing and giving it the value. So if I wanted that to be 0.3, and now when I play it, now, one of the things is that if you have a tune book, and this was of course pointed out to me by, was conveniently mansplained to me by someone who said, well, English hornpipes aren't swung. What if I have a tune book and I don't want my hornpipe, I don't want this this English hornpipe swung. Well, that's easy. For that particular tune, you just add no swing. So even though, okay, so I'm going to take this out, and we'll play it. By default, it'll swing. Sorry, hold on a second here. I think I turned off the auto swing. No, I didn't. Okay, let me just get rid of that. Let's play it. Oh, because I took the word hornpipe out. That's why. He doesn't know it's a hornpipe. Okay, so we have a hornpipe. Make sure it's a hornpipe. Okay, so by default, the hornpipe will swing. If I had a tune book with a hornpipe in it and had a link to play, and someone hadn't turned off the defaults in their settings, when they play it, they would get the swung hornpipe. But if I wanted to force the swing, so even if they by default they didn't have a default hornpipe swing set, I would just type swing and then give it the swing factor, and I would inject that into all the tunes. So the swing explorer can inject it. So now if I just want to force it not to swing, even though, so again, let me go back. So by default, it's going to swing it. If I specifically don't want it to swing this tune, no swing. Now it shouldn't swing it. And again, where this comes into play is in tunebooks, where you have a PDF tunebook with play links, and you've got 50 hornpipes that want to be swung, and you've got 2 of them that you never want swung, no matter what the user has their default settings to. You can just add the no swing duration to the tune. But you can also do something else so that you don't have to inject the swing variant into every single one of your tunes. There's actually a I'm going to just do this one here, all available. There's actually a directive, these 2 directives here, that they're kind of like the play links for all the tunes. You can set the swing for all hornpipes in the tune book so that when they play, they either play with a particular swing value or they don't swing, or you can then override on an individual tune, whether individual hornpipe, whether it swings or not. So there's a lot of flexibility in the swing system, both in terms of how much swing and whether you want tunes to swing or not swing in a tune book. I want to show you just one other feature of the swing, and it's just something to be aware of. So I'm going to just bring this down to the minimum here. So here we have, we got the cache, and it's going to swing a little bit. And the problem would be is if there was a pickup note. So if I had, let's say I had a D pickup note for this. Now, if I were to play this using this swing, what you'll notice is it doesn't sound right. Let me set the swing so that it's more extreme so you can hear how wrong it is. Here it's going da 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 da. When it's not supposed to be doing that, it should be sounding more like this. I mean, it's extreme, but I'm trying to show it just so you can kind of see the example. And the problem is that the swing is based on absolute time into the tune. And so it does it by looking at, it's basically doing adjustments on notes that are eighth notes. And so because it's an absolute, it's kind of trying to figure out when it's doing the swing solution, it's trying to figure out like where in the measure, where in the tune. It doesn't, at this point, we're at the MIDI stop, we're basically at the MIDI rendering phase. We don't know we're in a measure. We don't know where we are in the tune. All we know is an absolute time position offset from the relative, from the start of the tune. So, so this is a case where you have to tell the swing generator that there's a pickup note. And the way you do that is you just put another number after the swing directive. And this is all described in the user's manual. And that tells the swing solution that, oh, there's a single eighth note pickup note before the tune. You're going to need to offset the whole swing by an eighth. And now you'll hear it actually. So I'll take that out so you can hear it doing it wrong. And then I'll show you what happens when it does it right. So here's it's wrong. And then I'm going to just add that one, and you'll hear now everything gets in sync. And the best place to play with that when you're working on a particular tune is again in that Swing Explorer. If you go in the Swing Explorer, remember you probably saw this. So I'm going to go ahead and put that 0.5 in and test it, and you'll see it'll be wrong. Oh, that doesn't sound right. So you can go ahead and just test it here. We'll say eighth note offset, reload it. Now it'll be right. Once everything's right, you click Inject Swing into ABC. That will stick that directive, the one I did manually, into the tune for you, so that you don't have to, you can test it once it's right. It'll take care of putting that in there for you.
So if you want to do that in a reel,
yep.
Is it always a default of an eighth note, or what is? Does it depend on what your default note is?
No, the default will always be an eighth note.
Okay.
Yeah. What's interesting is that most reels, most reels, the pickup and hornpipes, the pickups are generally in twos. And as long as they're in twos, it'll be fine. So I'll show you. I'll actually do it with a reel. I mean, it was interesting looking at this because when I was trying to solve this, I was like, oh, I need to actually look at tunes and I need to look at, reels and all that and see like, let me bring up like 100. Okay, I'll bring up like 50 reels here. Okay, oh, that's interesting. This one actually has a single pickup note. That's cool. Okay, so like mostly I would see things like this, like Bank of Ireland here, right? We have two, but with two, the swing solution will just work because because it's kind of like the jigs, because it's the way the swing works is that it adds duration to the first note of a pair, and it offsets the second note by the amount that it added, and then it shortens it. So if I swing this by, I'm gonna overswing it 0.5. It'll probably just work. It'll be fine. That's over. I mean, obviously I've done overkill. So let's make it maybe something more reasonable, 0.25. Why am I doing this in here? I should be doing this in the Swing Explorer. God, I use my own tools. It'd be a lot easier to demonstrate. Oh, because I want to be able to edit this. So, but if that was a single note, like, okay, so I'll play it without the swing. And if I were to put a swing directive in, it's going to be off. But now this is a case where I would want to add the one. So that's just something you have to be aware of when using the swing, is you have to sometimes, and it's going to be just tune dependent. I couldn't solve this universally because literally by the point where I can add the swing, I don't know anything about the tune. I don't have any structure of the tune available to me. I just have raw timing information of the notes that I have to offset.
I just have a lot of tunes that are swung, and that's an interesting little tidbit that you can throw that in. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So just again, something to be aware of when you're playing with swing. And again, it's all described in excruciating detail in the user's guide. I try to document all this stuff. Okay, very final thing we'll talk about. It's great. We're going almost 3 hours again today. It's amazing. I want to talk a little bit about the Grace Explorer, and this was how can I describe it? This is the holy grail of ABC to some extent, along with swing. You know, if you think about the two things that ABC players have always gotten very wrong with ABC playback is, and yes, there have been very elegant solutions for it, but because so many of the players now are based on ABCJS, and ABCJS by default has a the original solution that he had for Grace Notes, it was okay, but it wasn't optimal for Irish music. Again, he's not specifically focused on traditional Irish music, and I am, and so I wanted to have a way to be able to retain his original solution, but also provide the opportunity for a custom solution to do ornamentation timing. And I think the best way to show this to you is to go into the Grace Duration Explorer, and I'm going to set that to 0. And this will be, I'm going to set the speed a little bit. Matter of fact, let me do this. Hold on a second here. I'm going to slow it down just a little bit. Okay. So the original ABCJS solution for Grace Note duration sounded like this. So what do we got going on there? Well, we got no swing. We got improper ornamentation. It's like, this doesn't sound anything like traditional Irish music, and it's kind of embarrassing to give that to a student. So, okay, so the first thing to do is let's give it some swing. So we'll go ahead and I'll just manually stick the swing in. We'll make it swing 0.3. We'll play it. So at least we got some swing. Okay, but let's go back into the Grace Explorer, and I'll set this to 0. And setting it to 0 just means disable my custom solution, and I believe it actually will tell you that here. Yeah, 0 disables the custom Grace solution, and you can hear. So now we got swing, but we got the improper ornamentation speed. So the idea here is you can set the duration of these Grace notes, and the idea is that the original solution was that he took half of the note value ahead of the Grace note, and then if there were 1 or 2 or 3, graces or cuts or whatever you want to call them, depending on your style of music, he would divide that time into those Grace notes, and the end result, in some cases, would be okay, and in like a case like this, it sounds kind of stilted and odd. What I did is I always think about ornaments, because I play flute, pipes, and whistle, and the general sense I have is ornamentation is independent of the speed of the tune. An ornament is a separation tone. It's a way of separating notes. It's a way of accenting an initial initial note or something. They generally are ideally pitchless, and ideally the speed of the ornament doesn't depend on the speed of the tune. You don't play a cut slower when you're playing a tune slower generally. I mean, maybe slightly, there might be some slight difference, but it's not like you don't scale. Like when you play a tune at 100 beats per minute or 50 beats per minute, you wouldn't play the cut half the speed. You would play the cut the same speed, but you would play the note for this duration based on the tempo. And so my custom solution does exactly that. You pick the timing of the ornament. And I did this by actually recording my own playing on the whistle. So I literally played like Lark in the Morning. And I brought that into, Adobe Audition, and I looked at the timing. I actually looked at like how long are my cuts typically. And it turns out my cuts are typically around 40 to 45 milliseconds. And so I use that as a default, as the actual default value for cuts now. So if we reload this, and this is now going to use my custom solution, it's going to set those cuts to be 45 milliseconds, all of them, no matter what the speed of the tune is. And then it's going to, what it does is it steals that time away from the note after it. Right, and
Nice.
and that could be, and you can change it, right? Like here's a very short cuts. Okay, or make it longer. And here's why this is important. Oh, sorry, I need to reload it. Like that sounds just fine at 45 on the harp. But if we were to change that instrument to what is it, 80, 78. 78 is the whistle. Actually, let me do something that's not quite so shrill. Let's do the concertina. This is one of my custom instruments here. So here's a concertina. You know, they get kind of lost. They get kind of lost, and it's because the attack time on the concertina is not instantaneous. So this is one of those cases where maybe if you bump that up to, I don't know, 80, it's still very short, but you'll hear now it's a little more distinct. Right. So the idea is by using the Grace Explorer, you can kind of dial in the right feel for the ornamentation depending on the instrument that the tune's being played in. The default is 45 milliseconds, and if you don't override it, it's just going to use that by default. You have to actually kind of opt in for the if you want to disable my solution. But once you have it all dialed in, then you can actually let's see, I'll set it back to 45 just for laughs, and we'll say inject grace duration of the ABC, and kind of like the Swing Explorer, you can see it's added the grace duration option directly to it. I'll set that back to let me see here. The harp was what, 17? If you ever forget, you can either use the MIDI Explorer, you can just bring this little cheat sheet up here. Let's see here, it's the 46, that's the harp. So I'll make that 46. And now we have the graces. Again, I default to this 45. If you don't put it in there, it'll just use 45. But even if I play this like at half that speed, you'll hear the graces. Better do this right. It should be the same speed. Yeah. So the grace speed is independent of the speed of the tune. Much more reflective of how someone would actually play it. I'm trying to remember if I make this something you have to opt in or if you can opt out of it. No, you opt into. This is by default. You have to actually opt out of it by, if you really wanted to use the original solution and not mine, you would set that to 0 here, and that tells it turn off the custom graces. It goes back to the ABCGS. Goes back to the ABCGS default. So between the swing and the grace duration, the changes in the behavior of the ornamentation, it really, I think, it really makes the music, I think, the ABC a lot more realistic. I mean, it's, any of these sort of MIDI-based things are not going to be perfect, but they're going to, they just make it at least better, and something that I wouldn't feel bad about sending a student to. And the beauty of it is because I changed the grace behavior by default, it means that someone coming in from a tunebook, if the tunebook has ornamentation in it, it just means when it plays better. They don't have to do anything. It just works better. So, you know, that was the kind of the idea, is always to try not to do harm, only make things better, and don't break anything, because there's thousands and thousands of tunes out there already. I don't want to break any of them. So I think that covers pretty much everything. We haven't talked too much about the share links. Again, you can copy these out of here, just copy share link. You can send them to people. You can shorten them if you want shorter, you know, and you don't want to have like one of these giant links in Facebook. You just want a little code. You can do that from there as well. Again, the Tunebook page has all of the tunebooks that you can download, and they're in all the different, you can see there's, you know, 12 different varieties of Tunebook with the different tablatures that are available. Just I think anything else on here. If you have a question, you can, there's a support page that has some, you know, if there's any issues or you need to send me an email. Tip jars, again, if it's useful to you, I always appreciate it. People can send me Venmos or PayPals, and I appreciate if you're one of those people, thank you so much for having done that. But again, this is a labor of love. Oh, one last thing. If you want more space, particularly if you're on a tablet, you click this, gets rid of the controls and gets rid of the top. So that's something I just not too many people use that, but it's there if you really don't want to be distracted by all the controls, you don't need them. And credits. This is where all the libraries I use, you know, this is a community effort. I didn't write all this code. I'm using kind of what's available out there to do a lot of this stuff. I mean, I had to put it all together, but you know, like Jim Van Donsal was the one who came up with the original idea of how to do Anglo Concertina tablature, and so that was a starting point for mine. This whole effort started because of this page. Believe it or not, this is the earliest version of. This was the first. This is exactly the thing that bootstrapped me into writing this tool. My tool is a fork of this thing, not the prettiest. And you notice the choice of font, and my use of font is a homage to Jen's original source for it. You know, it was only because of him this thing exists. So. And Philip McGarvey is one of a friend of mine who came up with the original ShareLink idea about how to share tunes by adding them to the URL. So he's really responsible for the whole system that ended up with the interactive tunebooks. So it's been quite a community effort here, you know, and you know, so many of the features that are in the tool these days are only there because people said, hey, you know, I'd like to be able to do the, you know, I'd like to be able to work with this Comhaltas ABC format, or I have this Chinese flute I would like to be able to support, or can you do bass? You know, like someone like, I want bass tab. Okay, I guess we could do bass tab, or a bouzouki tab. You know,
Michael.
Yes.
This is Holly again. I know that I don't think it's possible. Someday in a parallel universe, if you could do mountain dulcimer tab, it will.
Yeah.
And I know there's good reasons.
Let me specifically speak to mountain dulcimer tab, because I gave a lot of thought to mountain dulcimer tab. And I talked to Peter Tomarup, you know, who's a regular on one of my sessions, who plays mountain dulcimer, and we talked for a long time about it. And my problem with mountain dulcimer, there was actually two problems. One is sort of you know how mountain dulcimers may have 1.5 frets, they may have 6.5 frets. You know, some people go, I don't know, fully chromatic on them. Mm-hmm. The fret numbering system on them is all over the board, right? No two instruments, you know, I mean, there's going to be a certain class of instruments with 6.5 frets. So people don't know. It's like mountain dulcimers they're not like a mandolin. They're not fully chromatic generally. They're diatonic, but to make it possible to play in not everything in kind of a mixolydian mode, they often have a 6.5 fret. And that gives you the the 7-tone. And but then, you know, as people got more sophisticated with the instrument evolved, and people started adding more of these chromatic frets, so they now had more flexibility to play in major and minor modes without having to retune their instrument. And so you have instruments with no extra frets, you have instruments with 1 extra fret, instruments with 2 extra frets. The other problem is tuning. You know, the dulcimer can be tuned DAD, it could be tuned AEA, it could become GAD. Everybody, you know, people tune their instrument differently. So first thought was like, oh man, there's so many configurations for these things. This tablature system for that ABCGS uses, his string system assumes 2 things. One is that that it's a chromatic instrument, and the second thing is that the strings are of increasing pitch, which is why you can't do a ukulele, because the ukulele has what do they call it? Yeah, it's got a shift. It's got one note that they're not all increasing pitches, and ABCJS can't handle that. That's why I don't. That's the only reason I don't do ukulele tab. So there's a couple of problems. One is that ABCGS couldn't represent a diatonic fretted instrument using the tablature. But the bigger problem is that I started looking at actual dulcimer tablature, you know, the way it's published, and it's really it's more designed around chordal playing than melody playing, in my opinion. And I think if I were, you know, if I just look at it, I mean, you could play the melody, and you could probably, even if you could come up with a solution that used this kind of tablature, fundamental tablature, the whole playing of the instrument and all the tablature, even for simple tunes, just seems to be about, you know, it'll show like it'll show these chords, and then you'll play a few notes, and then you'll play another chord. And I thought, this just isn't going to look familiar to mountain dulcimer players. It was part of the other one was just kind of like an aesthetics thing. It was like, this doesn't even if I could solve it, it doesn't really look like what they're used to, in my opinion. So I looked at it and thought, this is both a technical issue and an aesthetics issue. And then there's another tool already out there called I think it's called Table Edit.
Yeah, I know it.
Yeah, and Table Edit does exactly what people want, you know. And so I thought, well, that's...
Yeah, I need to learn that. I need to learn that tool desperately.
Yeah, and I thought, well, I don't want to, you know, I can't really
want to reproduce the wheel.
Take that on. Yeah, because it's so complete, like it's not really supported by ABCJS, and it's you know, you'd have to have like you'd have to configure you'd have to like have a configurator that's set up your string tuning, set up your fret numbers. You know, and then you'd have to figure out a way to present it, and that way would have to be something that's not what's built into ABCJS. So I looked at it and I said, this is not something I want to take on.
Right.
I mean, the same problem, it's the exact same problem as, like I showed you that tool for the GC and DG melodians. Same problem there. There's like, you know, in BC box, C#D box, there's very few choices because the rows they only share 2 common notes. Like on the BC box, the B's and the C's are on both rows, and all the other notes are they're independent. And so you can generate tablature with some very simple rules about, you know, do you prefer to use the shared notes on what would be considered the primary row or the secondary row? And I just decided I'm going to make a primary row because this tablature is really for newer players. And so it was an easy solution. GC box, like if you think about the C scale and the G scale, how many notes are shared between those scales? Like most of them, right? Except for the F sharp, right? And so there's an infinite number of solutions to how you would play the tune. And because when they play on the GC, those boxes, I kind of go into the weeds here. A lot of BC players, a lot of Irish players never touch the basses. And some do, but a lot of them, they just play the melody. The melody is a lot more deterministic on a BC box. GC box, GD boxes, like Morris players, they're playing the basses all the time. And those boxes, the basses, much like an Irish accordion, kind of depends on how the accordion's put together. Maybe they have a G and a D in the same direction. Maybe they have to change buttons. maybe some notes are only available, buttons are only available, certain chords available in certain directions. And that would then have to inform the solution for building tablature for it, right?
Okay.
Because you know they're playing an A chord, and an A chord's only available on a pull, and that pull note's only available on the well, in this case, in the GC, it'd be on both rows. Which one do you pick? You have to know, you actually have to know, like, you have to be a GD, melodian player, a CG melodian player to come up to figure out, And so I thought any solution I'm going to get for this is going to be wrong. And I actually asked.
Understandable.
Yeah. So I asked the community. No, I try to. I think about these things seriously because, like, there's a lot of players of Mountain
Oh my
Dulcimer.
God.
Yeah.
I will say that the standard is the DAD tuning with 1 6.5 fret. The 1.5 fret is very unusual. The chromatic is very unusual.
Yeah.
So, but and I'm fine with it. I'm just, don't worry about it.
But here's what's, well, shoot. Yeah. See, it wouldn't.
Nah, don't even worry about it.
Yeah, because I was thinking like you could use like the dadgad, tablature. But again, this assumes chromatic, so it wouldn't be of any use. There'd have to be some. The way it would have to work is I would have to do it in a DAD, and then I would have to intercept the numbers coming back that would be chromatic, and then I would have to translate that to a dulcimer fret number, and then I would have to do something kind of like I do with the whistle tablature, or the names, and put the number here. So it's possible. I'm not saying I'm not going to do it, but it was like, at the end of the day, would someone who plays lap dulcimer actually want to use it that way, or would they prefer to have the other standard? I thought, I just feel like I'm not going to get this right, and then, of course, what will immediately happen if I do a DAD with a 6.5 fret is, what about, what about EAE or whatever,
Exactly. TGC.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'll play with tablet, but this ABC is brilliant.
I'm glad it's useful to people.
It's just, I mean, we should have 200 people on this Zoom.
Yeah.
But it'll get out there.
Yeah. Well, I do keep track of, one of the things I added about a month ago is I did add Google Analytics to the tool, both to tell me how many people were using it, but I actually keep track of how many people are playing a tune, how many people are using. Yeah, so I have statistics, and hopefully this won't seem too creepy to you. And I do actually say this in the user guide that I do collect this information. This is not individually identifiable, but I do want to show you the kind of stuff that I'm collecting. Because, well, first you should know, I am collecting this data.
So can you sort of analyze who's using the Grace Note editor and who's using the, or not who, but how many?
I can, and let me show you here. This is kind of nuts. Okay, like right now, 4 people are using it, but I want to show you. This is.
Oh wow!
I want to get into the.
Oh my God!
Let me go into the events here.
How cool!
I need to find the events. Here we go.
You have Australia.
Here we go. View events. So this is the kind of stuff I'm collecting. Is like if someone plays the tune. So for example, people are using. I'll zoom this up a little bit so you can see it better. So like when people come in from a Tunebook and they play the tune, like I know, like in the last week, there have been 2,350 plays of tunes. Okay. I know if people are coming in from a desktop, like 800 in the last week, people clicked that transpose button 808 times. Like I can say, I can see that, playing the tunes and transposing tunes is the most very common. But I can actually drill down into this. I actually keep track on each dialogue of how many times they get clicked. So the play dialogue is the most common thing, but I'm really happy to see this. Okay, in the last 7 days, 421, the tune trainer has been used 421 times. That tells me that's a useful feature, right? Let's see here. Let's just show all of them here. So so this tells me like, what people are using. Oh, okay, people are actually using the Grace Explorer, Swing Explorer. I got 52 and 47. Again, none of this is personal information.
Right.
This tells me what's important. Like you can sort your tunes. If you have a tune book, I'll show you here. Like if you bring in, I need something that's not sorted. Okay, so like here, these tunes are just in some random order, right? If I want to sort them, I can go into advanced and I can say sort, and I can sort by name. And now it's going to put the tunes in order.
Unbelievable.
Okay, but I didn't really know how many people are using it. Well, not that many people are using it, right? There were 2 people in the last week, as opposed to 2,300 people playing tunes. 2 people sorted tunes. 1 person did a batch MP3 Export. That was probably me. Playing with it. So I use this kind of information to tell me what's important. Like what, like clearly the playing features are the things that are most important. That sort of thing.
That's fascinating. I do that sorting all the time, but I don't do it on your app because first of all, I didn't know it was there.
Yeah, it's there.
I already have it on my Standalone app that I use.
Yeah,
for writing tunes.
It'll sort by key meter. Like if you have a random tune book and you want to like divide it up into, at least get the 4/4s and the 6/8s separate. You can use the sort by meter. Of course, these are all polka, so it's all going to be the same. But yeah, it'll let you sort by different fields, and I can expand that if anybody asks for it. Just a couple more thing on the analytics. So here's one of the things that's kind of interesting is if you're doing editing, it probably at some point, and again, I don't expect people to pay me, but I do appreciate it when they do. And, so what I do is I figure the vast majority of people using the tool are going to be using these tune books, and that's absolutely the case. And I can tell that from here. I can tell that from here because people are coming in and playing tunes. And the other thing is that they come in from, let's see here. This would be, here, let's just load them all again. Okay, you can kind of see here this start from share or show player from share. What that means is that they came in from a share link and it showed the player. And the way it works, if you've been using the tool and you've been editing tunes, probably at some point in the past 4 months, you got a one-time dialogue that had, my face on it and said, "I see you're doing this, just a reminder about my tip jar," and then you never see that again, right? And I do that after someone has come into the tool 25 times, not from a share link, which means they're actually doing editing with it. And I figure people who are actually using the tool to edit, make tune books, maybe I can give them a little nudge. I do it once. On the 25th time they run the tool on a particular browser. But people who come in just from play links, they'll never see that. They'll never ever see that because that's, I don't think that's, I think that's just, I don't want to be invasive. But I think people who are actually using to create tune books, it's okay to remind them. So I can tell, for example, from the, and I can also tell like how many people are actually opening ABC tunes. Even though there's 2,400 people that play tunes, only 210 opens. Probably those are a lot me, because my own testing ends up being in this. I can tell how many people are using tabs. Okay, so like the tablature, most of the people are using mandolin tablature, but actually there are some people doing mandola. Good to see. Again, I'm not doing this to be creepy, but it tells me what's important, and then I feed that back into my decisions as far as future decisions. Where to focus. Like clearly, like adding something like the ability to. This was a really big deal. So like when people would come in from the player, so they're on some, I'm going to just kind of simulate this here. They'll come in from a tune book. Okay, so we'll just go to like a full speed. and they'll come in from a tune book. And it used to be that, of course, there was no tune trainer. And I thought about it, and I thought, geez, I really should have a way to go like, there they can play it. Wouldn't it be nice if they could just immediately start doing this progressive training directly? And so, I think it was last week I rejiggered the whole bloody thing. So I made the tune trainer like, the tune trainer used to be buried. It used to be buried down in the advanced. It used to be like here, but now it's like right there. You go right to it, and it's on the play dialog. And now anybody who comes in from a tune book, which are typically going to be, people learning tunes, they can just go right in and start doing the training. And I've been using the trainer myself for tune sets this last week. I mean, normally I would do stuff using transcribe, but but I just I have this one particular tune that I'm working on, and it was just so easy for me to use the trainer myself. The other thing that I added to the trainer, let me turn off the accordion just because it's kind of loud. Like this was something I just added like in the last week is so for example, we're going to start at 80%, we're going to go to 100%, 10% increment each time. Let me take this down just to one line just to make it more clear what's going on here. But let's say I was in the tune trainer and I have this training session. I think of these as training sessions, right? And so now it shows you like we're at 80%, and it's going to be easier if this was 2, you could see it. So you'll see this little bar graph in the corner. It says, okay, we're at 80%, 1 of 2. The little bar graph kind of shows you your progress, and it increments, each one of those loops adds a little bit to it based on the total number of loops it's going to do over the course of the training. And that way it kind of tells you, so okay, I'm halfway through, or I'm 3/4 of the way through. So I just added that like a couple days ago. And what I found was when I was practicing my own tunes, it was kind of nice to have that graph to know like how much more I had to go before I was done, because I was learning Nia's Barn Dance, which is a Dermot Byrne tune. And I've been getting it wrong in my session now for a month, and I needed to get it right, so I just put it. I used the tune trainer to do it, and I just found the bar graph to be just a really handy way to keep me in my chair, because it was a bit of a reward. All right, I think that is everything and more that I have about this thing. I don't have any specific plans for what I'm going to be doing with it next. I've been doing a few things just recently for people on touch screens. Trying to, if you're on a touch screen, if you're on an iPad or something like that, it can be kind of a pain accessing these fields. So I added a feature where you can increment and decrement these fields. It's an optional thing. It's in the settings, but it's by clicking on the left and right sides of these long, because I figure a lot of people are going to be using the trainer. It's kind of, if you click this on an iPad, it brings up the keyboard, and then it kind of, things jump all over the place as they do on mobile sometimes. This just lets you just tap things to set the values. I've been playing around with ways of setting the speed by clicking here and here, but I don't know if I'm going to ship that.
That was a question.
Yeah.
With the speed, it's great. You can put in 50%, 75%. Is there any chance of just having a dial for 120 beats per minute and slide it down to 110 beats per minute?
Yeah, I thought about that. That was one way of potentially presenting it. But
just a thought.
Yeah, I thought about the I thought about that, but then how can I describe it? I found it a little bit more confusing. I found it a little bit more confusing than thinking in terms of percentage of original speed. I had to make that decision. I had to make that call whether I was going to present in terms of beats per minute versus percentage.
And as a trainer, to get it up to the speed at 100%, that makes sense.
Yeah, see, because that's the way I use. Yeah. That's the way I use like tools like transcribe is those have buttons for like 50%, 70%, 100%. They kind of make sense because they're working with just raw audio. They don't have any concept of the actual tempo.
Right.
For me, it was a model I was familiar with already. It's like, I generally think in terms of, oh, I'm going to play that tune at half speed, or I'm going to play that tune at 70% speed.
Exactly.
So it kind of reflects my bias, I guess.
And it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just kind of, that's where I was coming from on it. I mean, it certainly could be done either way, and I could have an option to switch between BPM versus percentage in the future. Yeah, but yeah, this was just something that I put together last week, and it's turning out to be like God, I can't believe I didn't do that before, because I realized that I had the ability to change the speed. It's like, well, why not have the thing change the speed by itself? Yeah. Any other questions before we kind of wrap it up for the day?
Well, this is wonderful stuff. I have been passively watching what you're doing and getting more and more interested. And now that you've got swing and grace notes in there, that's just going to be great.
Kind of a game changer, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. So this all looks wonderful. I'll be diving in. I see on the Tune Trainer, I would tend to want to loop on some number of measures. You know, I would want to say loop on these 2 or these 4 measures to if I really wanted to get into the details on the toughest parts of the tune.
Yeah. The best way to do that, I'm going to show you a system for that. And I actually did a dedicated video on this at one point. The best way to do that is if you're isolating parts, grab a snapshot. This is what I would used to do before there was the Tune Trainer. And then I would do this, and then I would just isolate the parts like this, and then I would bring it into and then I would go into the Tune Trainer. And then I would restore this from the snapshot, and then I would, isolate the next part. And I know it's a manual process and kind of a pain in the ass, but that's not that hard, right? So it's possible to do it just a little bit of interaction. The idea being is take advantage of the snapshot feature, because that way you don't have to don't have to worry about keeping track of. It's like, okay, I just want to work on, these 2 measures here. I have the snapshot. I don't have to worry about destroying anything. There's the 2 measures. I go into the Tune Trainer and I play it. So, even though it's not completely automatic, trying to do the kind of isolation or measure selection interface, effectively you're going to have to end up doing the same thing I'm doing, but in a different way. You'd have to count measures or something like that. So my feeling is just manipulate the ABC into the way you want it. Again, this is where the snapshot is your friend. Just isolate stuff manually and then use the Tune Trainer would be my recommendation. That's how I do things, at least.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks
I'm
for
already
coming
using it.
and participating in it, and thank you for supporting it, and thank you for putting up with me with my daily spamming of all these boards. I'm trying to be less chatty, but geez, some of this stuff is very exciting.
It's wonderful. So thank you so much.
All right, great. And I'm going to be doing these. I typically going to be doing these like once a month, more or less, as people become more interested in it. And it's nice to. And again, if you have suggestions, questions, bug reports, whatever, please let me know. I'm totally open to. At a minimum, I will put them on the list of requested features for the future. I have a Google Doc. I've got probably like 20 things on there, and I've checked off 12 of them over the past 6 months. And and I'll check off more. As a lot of this is just I just don't know how to do it, and I'll wake up. I'll be in the shower and like, oh, I know how to do that. No, 2 hours later, the feature's there. But
Absolutely.
Those
epiphanies.
Yeah, exactly. That's this whole thing has been driven by epiphanies, user suggestions and epiphanies. That's the whole.
There's an album title.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming, and
Thank you.
See you around the interwebs.
Thanks so much.